This is a story about an unparalleled Minda boy who found his perfect world and the absolute power he would wield over it. In a room cluttered with mysterious scrolls and strange clay figurines, a young boy with hair woven like silver works with burning concentration. He smiles, deep understanding sparkles in his eyes. For him, this world is a place of magic, free from the boring distractions of televisions and smartphones, a true paradise of boundless possibilities. As he himself says, this is his ideal world. But this was not his first life. The story began in another world when he found himself in a cold, harsh reality. He was a high school student, and his father once said that he came from an ancient line of mages. Although it was just a story, the boy clung to it and devoted his youth to studying magic and occultism, which alienated him from his peers. While others bent to fleeting social ties, he sought to unravel the hidden truths of the universe and filled his room with books on black magic and ancient wisdom. He knew with his mind that magic did not exist, but some part of him fervently dreamed that it was true, and this blind focus on secret knowledge made him an outcast. His classmates saw in him a strange, troubling figure. Human relationships seemed to him a code he did not want to decipher at all. One afternoon, a girl he barely knew walked away from him. His push had frightened her. He watched her go, and suddenly a sharp movement appeared before his eyes. A truck speeding at an unimaginable velocity rushes straight at him, and there is neither time to react nor a moment to comprehend. A blinding flash from the impact. Darkness, his consciousness drifts and dodges, piecing together lost moments. He thinks to himself, is he in a hospital, or was he somehow saved? But everything around seems wrong and strange. Feelings slowly return. He feels trapped, unable to move. Where is he? In his field of vision, a small, clumsy hand slowly floats by. And suddenly the world surged. He is a newborn baby in the arms of a man and a woman who look at him with love. He was born again. 2 years past now. He is a toddler named Abel, living in a small village belonging to the Marin clan. From this new perspective, he carefully analyzes everything around. The parents enthusiastically note his intelligence, saying he learned to eat by himself so quickly. But in the mind of this 2-year-old, a much more complex analysis is underway. He remembers his former name, a memory of a life already past, while observing his new family. They are easy to recognize, red eyes and white hair, a distinctive feature of the Marin clan. He carefully surveys the surroundings. There are no electrical devices here, and on the map a continent he has never seen. The conclusion is inevitable. This is no longer his former world. Only 4 years, and his new life has truly begun. He spends days carving totems, strange wooden dolls that seem sacred to his clan. One day his mother cut her finger while cooking. She says it is just a small cut, but father immediately rushed to her. He places a ring on the wound and whispers one impossible word: heal. A gentle light shone, and the cut disappeared. Abel is stunned. His head is spinning. Healing magic is real. He begins to notice it everywhere. Parents use simple spells for daily tasks. They animate dolls, draw water from the well, and kindle fire. Here, magic is not a myth. It is an integral part of life. At that moment, his lonely obsession from the past finally found confirmation. All those years of study were not in vain. He is reborn in a world where he can finally use magic, and he is overwhelmed by incredible, deep joy. Younger sister Gizel tries to get his attention, but Abel is completely absorbed in work. He is focused on carving another totem. His father, a man of simple strength, advises him to go play outside because he cannot understand how deeply his son is focused. To Abel's analytical mind, his father is a muscle brain, a man with great physical gift but without the intellect to truly understand him. Through careful observation and reading, Abel begins to decipher the system. Magic in this world is not an abstract force, but a science, the art of giving commands or spells to spirits that dwell in everything. To do this, one must draw magical circles and signs in the air with a magical line, focusing attention on the spirits so that the spell appears. Creating a totem is perfect training because it requires incredible spatial attention and iron concentration. The very tools he uses are filled with power. The wood for totems comes from magical trees, and the clan's knives carve it effortlessly. He learns that the Marin clan once scared everyone as a secret weapon of war. Their children possessed extraordinary magical knowledge. But that was long ago. Now his father interrupts the training and tries to push him onto a more familiar path. The war ended 100 years ago, and the old deep art of magic gradually faded, and the father hands him a bow and says that hunting is the path of a true man of the Marin clan. Abel looks at the crudely made weapon with contempt. To receive such in a world where he could change reality only by the power of will, an insult to his mind. By the age of 7, the village already looked completely different. Abel's relentless pursuit of magic made him a totem maniac. His father falls into despair because of the ever-growing collection of carved dolls accumulating near their home. But Abel is far from just a carver. he stands in the field, fully focused, and utters words as if they were symbols themselves. Above him in the air appears a complex glowing magical circle. His sister Gizzle, who is already 5, watches in admiration. They learned secretly, and now both can create this basic magic. Abel swears her to keep the secret. He knows that revealing their true power too early would be a big mistake. He has already far surpassed everything his parents could teach him. To advance further, he needs a true master, and logic points to only one: the village elder. If anyone among the mages of the Great War is still alive, it is definitely him. The chief is a formidable figure. He says he is 50, but magic preserves his youthful appearance. Abel with Gizzle and 2 approaches the elder and asks to become his apprentice. The chief looks closely at the little boy and warns that his training is strict. Abel is unwavering in his determination. The chief lets him go and says, "Come tomorrow when you are ready," a simple test of his seriousness. As soon as they left, the chief's granddaughter Firo came out to meet them. She says that her grandfather was pleased with Abel's determination and thanks him for giving the old man a new purpose. She tries to hide her gratitude with a contemptuous tone, but Abel is not fooled. He coldly and precisely analyzes her behavior, recognizing a common personality type in her, and so his official training begins. Under the chief's guidance, Abel's skills rapidly grow. He finally masters the true, clearly structured art of magical circles, and his mind, made for such complex systems, blossoms. He devotes every sleepless moment to training from morning till night. He tests theories and masters new spells. For him, this is not work, but the highest intellectual challenge. His room becomes a whirlpool of research and feverish creativity. His devoted sister brings him food. Her quiet support is always near. The floor and walls become covered with diagrams and magical formulas. He writes and writes and writes, unrelenting, pushing the boundaries of his knowledge. In half a year, the chief calls for a demonstration. Abel stands before him, radiating a quiet confidence that contradicts his age. He begins to utter symbols of light. Not one but 2 complex magical circles flare up and hang on both sides of him as he prepares to animate 2 totems at once. The chief is impressed. To control them simultaneously is a true feat. Abel places the magical circles on the totems. This is a necessary step to manipulate them. He commands puppet dance, and the 2 totems rise into the air, gracefully spinning. The chief nods approvingly. The boy's control is impressive, but Abel is only beginning. "I haven't really started yet, Grandpa," he says, a sly smile playing on his lips. The air began to whirl and merged into a sphere that fiercely spins a sharp, blade-like wind. He squeezes it, gathering energy into a dense, unstable sphere. The pressure rises to a critical point. But then he does something that shatters the chief's notion of magic to dust. When the sphere of destruction flies, 2 totems suddenly rush to meet it. Abel installed a backup override command in them. These are not his puppets, they are independent agents. They meet the wind sphere, and in a blinding flash, the totem's attack is destroyed by a controlled explosion that perfectly covers the target. Abe turned around, a slight apology appeared on his face. "Sorry, it seems I miscalculated the power setting." The chief froze without words. It was not a mistake. It was a level of spell weaving he had never seen. "Who taught you this?" he demands. "Action without command," he asks. Abel explains that he was just experimenting until it worked. The chief realized with surprise that the boy had independently figured out and reproduced a self-correcting magic circle, a true, genuine manifestation of genius. The old man pressed his hand to his chest, overwhelmed, and whispered, "I have nothing more to teach you. You are the first to ever complete my training. I can die peacefully." Abel and his sister shine with joy and wholeheartedly celebrate his success. He did not just master the basics at 7 years old, he had already created advanced magic. But for a mind like Abel's, mastery is only the beginning. He tells the chief that he wishes to learn more complex magic from the books in his library, and he will also need a few of the chief's totems. In a moment, the old man stands, unable to believe his eyes, as his enchanted totems march out of the house, each carrying a huge pile of priceless magical tomes. "How much are you borrowing?" he gasps. "Probably to carry all this, it will take about 3 trips back and forth," Abel replied casually, his hands already full. In front, sister, behind his new magical servants, Abel decisively walks away from his confused master. A broad, victorious smile spread across his face. Surrounded by a mountain of ancient knowledge, limitless possibilities unfolded before him, and he knows without a doubt, this world is his, and he will conquer it. In the depths of his study, surrounded by tall piles of arcane texts, Abel raised a simple wooden wand, a magical tool he carefully carved to shorten casting time. With a triumphant splash, he burst out of the room, holding high a strange metal device. "Gazelle, it's ready." His younger sister's eyes widened with admiration, and Abel, already 13, announced their next step with the calm authority of an experienced researcher. Let's gather data immediately. Hiding behind a hedge, they watched a local farmer tending his crops. Abel aimed the device, a focused gleam sparkled in his eyes, and he whispered the activation word appear. A semi-transparent panel instantly materialized above the man, displaying a series of symbols: hands, magic, 21, power, 34. The device worked as intended, a perfect tool to measure the invisible forces of this world. In the shadow of a large tree, Abel studied the initial readings on a large projection screen. The average magical power of an adult man about 20. Giselle, peering into the tangled interface, asked, "Brother, what kind of magic is this?" Abel quietly smiled with satisfaction. He was introducing an idea from his old world, a system of logic and measurements that would allow him to conquer this world. I've always wanted to have an RPG element. He remembered it so clearly: the sudden end of one life, and the stunning rebirth in a world ruled by magic. It was the most cherished fantasy, the grandest scene. He felt excitement, as if a grandmaster was arranging pieces on a board for a game only he understood. It was the feeling of the main character, not of a foreign written plot, but of a future he would forge himself. The voice of Gisela tore him from his thoughts. Your magical power is higher than that of ordinary adults. If you start training now, the future promises to be brilliant. But Abel had another concern. His father began using magical circles only at 20, and the entire Marin clan had low magical awareness, a collective weakness that deeply disappointed him, but at the same time opened up opportunities. Even the power of the village chief paled before his might, but Abel remained focused. Small victories did not impress him. Giselle stopped to admire a flower, and suddenly he was overwhelmed with unease. A quick scan showed that its power level was 4 times higher than his. He watched as she approached, not him, but a small creature resembling a demon hiding behind a tree. As soon as the creature appeared, Abel's tactical mind instantly awakened. Run the other way, he ordered, pulling the confused Gisela away from danger. He briefly reflected on his past life. Although he was a devoted fan of magic and fantasy, he had few friends, so he thought that in this new world everything would remain the same, a life of solitary reflections. Suddenly, a sharp shout tore him from his thoughts. A girl named Firo, accompanied by a large dog, walked toward them with a reproachful look. There is a rumor about you, son of Balak. What are you planning, toad maniac? Abel, not the least bit moved by the accusation, simply raised his device. That's all, want to see your status. The result stunned him. She was 10 times stronger than him. Direct confrontation was out of the question. Suddenly his entire demeanor changed. He politely bowed his head with practiced manner and said, "Sorry, I have to go. My father will be very worried if we don't go home soon." And Firo was left embarrassed by this sudden submissive departure. As expected, his father was waiting. His face was a mask of rage. "Why are you taking Gisela out so late? It's dangerous." The lecture lasted, and everyone reproached Abel for neglecting his duties for the sake of playing with magic. You are constantly playing with magic and not helping with the household. The father's patience reached its peak. The mother intervened from the threshold. By the way, you are the only one your age who has never hunted. If your brother goes hunting with this magic. She did not finish speaking, as the father had already made a decision, and Abel calmly and evenly replied, "I will go." So it was decided. Today, Abel sets out hunting. In the forest, they met other hunters, a man named Galia and his son Shibai. Abel recognized them as an artistic family, but he was speaking with them for the first time, another reminder of his consciously chosen solitude. He recalled the terrible farewell with Giselle that morning, her pleas for him to be safe, but it was a necessary step. Comforting her, he knew he had other reasons to go. He needed to test and improve his extremely weak physical condition. He promised her he would be safe and return soon. Remembering her deep admiration for him, he strengthened his resolve. In this clan, adulthood came at 16, and shortly after that, marriage followed. He had few friends, but those he had always stayed close. He felt a prickly sting of guilt. His obsession with magic had made her as lonely as he was. He took the first step, extended his hand to the other boy, and sincerely said, "It was nice to meet you today." Shibai only grunted and turned away. Galia quickly apologized for his son's rudeness, and Abel, with the wisdom of an adult, simply withdrew his hand and was not at all confused. Father strictly announced the main rule for today. "Abel, magic is forbidden. Try the bow or rely on your body." And it sounded logical, so Abel agreed, knowing he needed to strengthen his physical strength. He would try his best with what he had. But his body betrayed him. Barely an hour had passed since the start of the hunt, and he was already completely exhausted and barely keeping up with the others. "Let's go home," he begged. He said it was impossible. His entire being was directed towards magic, not this exhausting physical trial. She overheard his complaints and said mockingly, "What a freeloader." Just then Galia noticed a fluffy shimu parrot on a branch. This bird was really very tasty. Shibai drew the bowstring, his face tightened with tension. He released the arrow, but the bird flapped its wings and easily dodged it. The arrows flew past, and the birds rushed down, loudly and threateningly screaming at the boy who was trying to hunt it. While the men were gathering again to catch the bird with a knife, Abel's thoughts raced, giving him no peace. He remembered an ancient experiment, an attempt at biotype magic, with a rat as the test subject. When others were distracted, he took advantage of the moment. He stretched out his hand and silently cast a spell sleep. The bird instantly became sluggish and, spinning, fell from the air. Abel skillfully caught it and held it up before the stunned hunters. Someone whispered embarrassedly, "Sleeping magic." Abel pretended to be innocent and said, "Sorry, I want to take it as a pet." And this did not please his father at all. I told you, today you are not allowed to use magic," he roared. "But I came today to train my physical strength," Abel weakly objected. Suddenly, a deep rhythmic thudding sounded through the forest, shaking the ground beneath their feet. The experienced hunters froze. "What is happening? An earthquake?" One asked. Galia's face turned pale. "These footsteps. Run, flee at full speed." He shouted to his son, "We have to return and report this to the chief idiot. Hurry." In a moment, a colossal figure burst through the trees, a gigantic monstrous creature with blade-like claws and teeth, a true giant bear. Horror gripped the hunting group. Even Abel froze from the wild, stunning power radiating from the beast. Galia acted on pure instinct. She shot an arrow straight into the creature's eye. In a terrible display of endurance, the bear simply closed its eye. The arrowhead bounced off its tough skin without causing harm. What strong fur, thought Abel, his mind racing for a solution. He did not hesitate, sharply thrust his hand forward and cast the only non-lethal spell he thought could work: sleep. The magic worked and the giant monster began to stagger, its eyelids slowly closing. It was working. Abel, his father, shouted and rushed forward to pull him out from under the fallen beast. But even when the great bear was sinking into magical hibernation, his instincts took over, and he struck one last time. His huge claws tore through the air. The blow hit Abel's father and threw him into the air. "It was my fault, I was too careless," Abel whispered, frozen with horror. Galia tried to distract the beast to buy them a few precious seconds. The father, who was bleeding heavily from an open wound in his abdomen, stretched out his hand and placed it on Abel's head. "Abel, I trust you with Giselle and your mother. I only know healing magic." He looked at his son with pride. "You are a smart child. What you learned from me may be little, but..." A barely noticeable smile appeared on his lips. "At least in the end, I managed to act like a father," and then he was gone. Galia unleashed an avalanche of flames on the awakened beast. The flames washed over the great bear, but he only shook his head and was not harmed at all. A shadow fell over Abel's eyes. All emotions disappeared from his face, replaced by cold, frightening focus. He spoke two words, the key that triggered the power he kept secret. Dazzling, intricate magical circle exploded around him, pulsing with energy far more powerful than anything the hunters had ever seen. At first, his mind assessed the situation with cold clarity. He has such thick fur that probably until now he had not suffered any harm. The plan arose instantly, then the wind. He cast a cutting blade spell. A whirlwind of sharp wind grazed the bear's skin, causing a brief flash of pain but no real harm. When the bear growled angrily, Abel began doing the impossible, rewriting the magic circle in real time, adjusting its very structure. Now he spoke it, pouring the last drop of his magical power into the new attack. The beast finally sensed mortal danger and roared. The spells hit the target. A concentrated explosion of arcane power tore a bloody wound in the creature's thick hide. A fierce predatory smile spread across Abel's face, and his eyes flashed with uncontrollable power. Abel's mana reserves were melting. He stood opposite the monstrous great bear, a stream of magical energy raging before him. Thoughts raced as he calculated how much power was needed. If he could wound the bear even slightly, there was a chance it would retreat and they would gain precious time. But despair seized him. With a final surge of will, he poured all the last drops of his power into the spell, and his voice, a strained whisper, murmured, "Please." A blinding flash burst from his hands, covering the clearing. Abel closed his eyes as the shockwave swept through the air, and the whole world dissolved into a white haze. When the dust settled, he raised his eyes, which widened in disbelief. A strip of utter devastation stretched through the forest. Trees turned into splintered stumps. This far exceeded his expectations. He only wanted to cast a simple sleep spell enough to make the beast flee. Instead, he saw a huge creature lying motionless on the ground, completely helpless. His gaze fell on two more figures caught within the spell's radius. "Father," he shouted, horrified to realize that his spell had also knocked his companions unconscious. As he rushed to his father, another boy, Theo, approached him holding a piece of freshly cut meat from the defeated beast. "Mr. Abel," he said, his voice trembling with newfound respect. Lance nervously touched his unconscious father. Can you cut a little less? He asked, clearly confused by the situation. Abel quickly assessed the man he was about to wake up. He assured Theo that there were no external wounds on him, and I cast a spell on him that sustains life. But his own father was different. On his chest pulsed a glowing, complex magical circle, a sign of a severe internal wound. Without hesitation, Abel pulled out a dark, pulsating piece of the monster's flesh, and Theo watched in horror. Can this be used? They asked, and Abel's face grew grim. Unlikely, he admitted, but I will have to work with it. He placed his hands on that disgusting substance, directed mana into it, and commanded, adaptation. It was forbidden art, a spell created to force bare flesh to serve as a substitute for human tissue. The father let out a painful groan. His life was slowly fading. Abel understood what was at stake. The fusion of magical creature flesh with human, essentially, meant creating a chimera. In some cities, this was considered illegal dark magic. In others, a desperate but legal medical procedure. For the first time, he dared to apply biological magic on a human. The risks were incredibly high. He realized there was no other choice. He took a deep, calming breath, focused, and thought, I must do this. He concentrated every particle of attention on the delicate operation that was changing a life. As if time stood still. Finally, the procedure was completed. The father breathed calmly. The deadly wound healed. Abel weakened and fell to the ground, completely exhausted, and Theo froze in awe, watching the miracle that had just happened. If only there were no consequences, Abel muttered, mentally deciding to discuss this unprecedented event with the clan leader. His strategic mind was already switching to the next problem. Staying here is too dangerous, he said decisively, remembering that even more powerful monsters lurked in these forests. We plan to carry our parents on totems. Can you help me? When they moved back, dragging their parents on sleds woven from magic, Theo broke the silence. Abel looked around. His face said nothing. Everything is fine, Abel replied calmly. You helped a lot. If you weren't here, I wouldn't have had enough strength to make enough totems. Theo then made a stunning confession. I considered you my rival in love. Abel froze, genuinely puzzled. Rival in love, he thought, running through the too short list of girls he knew. There was his younger sister Giselle and Theo was mistaken, misunderstanding his silence. If it was about Theo, I thought so. He called Giselle an unattainable flower. The boy explained that since there were so few families in the Marin clan, and he constantly saw Abel and Giselle together, he immediately imagined the worst. As soon as Abel's brother sharply corrected this and put an end to it, Theo's jaw dropped in shock. Inside Abel, there was a constant grumble. How much energy these simple social misunderstandings take. Maybe, he thought, they and his sister were just too close for others to understand. Theo, as always naive, immediately lit up. Then can I call you brother-in-law? Abel's face hardened with irritation. Finally, hiding in the night darkness, they reached the village. The village guards ran out to meet them, and on their faces mixed anxiety and relief. Abel nodded briefly, indicating that the situation was under control. Suddenly, bustling footsteps sounded from the village gates. It was Gizel. She threw herself into his arms, tears rolling down her face. Anisama, I am so glad you are safe. Abel held her tightly. A rare flash of warmth broke through his restrained composure. Sorry that we returned so late. Later that night, as they stood under the moon, Giselle asked what he was thinking. Nothing, he said, turning away. But his thoughts were clear. He valued the quiet solitude of his magical studies far more than the chaos of the outside world. 2 years passed. Abel, now 15, walked through the village with a quiet but confident gait. He estimated the time. 2 more years and he would reach the same age at which he died in his previous life. A light nostalgia overwhelmed him. Looking at the sky, he thought, I wonder what my friends from the Black Magic Study Club are doing now. He hoped that his younger one was living well, free from guilt about the past. He vowed to make this new life good. Anisama, I finally found you. A voice rang out. It was Gizel, who was now 13 years old. She led him to some strange wooden structure in their yard. Lately, I have started gardening a bit. She explained that thanks to the magical additives Abel gave, the plant grew to such enormous sizes in just a week, and Abel, as was fitting, noticed this with a crooked smile. He explained his goal. He wanted to smoke the leaves for his upcoming coming-of-age ritual, as the Marin tradition required. So naturally, he decided to grow them himself to achieve the perfect taste. He brought a bowl of nutrient liquid to one of the plants resembling totems. All right, Mr. Goro, it's time for you to eat. Dizzle tilted her head sideways. Anisama, why do you call them misters? A deep emotion flashed across Abel's face. Because his slender, tall figure reminded me of Mr. Mountain, whispered the senpai, who helped me create the Black Magic Research Club. A tear welled up in his eye at the memory of the person who, in a past life, gave him a place where he felt at home. Brother, what happened? Gizel asked anxiously. He quickly wiped his eye. Huh, just a speck of sand in my eye. Their conversation was interrupted by an arrogant voice. Hey, are you capable? A boy with a contemptuous smile, accompanied by two others, was walking towards them. Who are you? Abel asked, his tone calm and indifferent. The boy burst out laughing. Apparently, those rumors about you that you are a homebody and know nothing about the world outside the door turned out to be true. He puffed out his chest with undeserved pride. Haven't you heard before about the great Noswell Karlko? The name Karlko awakened a distant, unimportant memory in his mind. He connected the dots. A mask of slight irritation froze on his face. But a hassle keeping track of relationships, it's just too much trouble. A young nobleman approaches Abel at work, accompanied by his retinue. He says he supposedly heard that the leader's apprentice is growing a totem, and under the guise of generosity offers some advice. Abel immediately sees through this transparent excuse. This visit is not for advice, but to confirm rumors and crush them before they spread. To understand the full weight of this visit, one must feel the local economy. In the Marin clan village, there is no money. Barter and exchange of goods are customary here. But it turned out that one special leaf, valued for its magical properties, became a convenient substitute for money, and its cultivation and distribution were completely monopolized by the Karlko house. The young nobleman's kin instantly recognized these were not official inspectors, but minions sent to scout a potential competitor. Nobleman Naswell glances at the lonely, unremarkable totem. So only one, he says, pretending to be indifferent. Thank you for coming, Abel replies calmly, but I do this only out of curiosity. It's not a big deal. Naswell smiles. I understand. Then there is nothing to worry about. But when he returns, a predatory smile appears on his lips. His mind is already spinning and calculating. This is not a threat. This is a source of huge profit, and she, standing nearby his everything, felt a chill run down her spine. Naswell barely glanced at her. Hey, girl over there, he commanded. Become my wife. Abel froze, completely shocked by the audacity of this demand. Naswell's servants exploded in panic, grabbed their master and shouted, No, Naswell, this is real trouble. If you anger that man, we're doomed. Better apologize quickly. They try to reach him, reminding him of the terrible rumors spreading through the village. Haven't you heard? If you anger Abel, he will turn you into a totem or a chimera. Naswell pushes them away, roaring in defiance. Are you two fools? These stories are absurd. The rumors were truly incredible. They spoke of alarm clock totems that spoke the time, and how Abel killed a huge bear with a single simple spell. These rumors are clearly exaggerated. Naswell puffs out his chest and boasts, and besides, I can easily kill a big bear with my magic. Where Naswell saw only foolishness, Abel saw an opportunity. His eyes lit up with genuine admiration. This short-haired man has such strong magic. I thought I was the only one interested in magical arts. Have I found a new friend? He did not guess Abel's thoughts. Naswell continued to demonstrate his power. Hey, you, come out here. The senior heir of the Karlka family is speaking. Gizel instinctively ducks behind Abel, seeking protection. Abel ignores the order, his thoughts elsewhere. I do not intend to give up Gizel, but I have finally found someone like me. Let's be polite. He approaches the nobleman, and his eyes shine with academic zeal. Your family has long cultivated leaves, so you are surely a master in making totems. I am working on a composition inspired by the works of Calba Fuller, but I am also interested in his theory. By the way, what paints do you use? No wave retreats in horror before this intensely disturbing wonder. Don't come near me, shouted Naswell, and harshly pushed Abel to the ground. He shook the dust off himself, sneering contemptuously. Ha, just as I thought, the rumors turned out to be lies. He's just a pathetic homebody. Then he directs all his contempt at the totem itself. Hey, you're raising your totem wrong, you know. Abel's friends are shocked, but NOSWA continues. I did everything exactly as I researched. Really, what's the problem? I'll show you. He extends his hand, and above his palm grows a shining triangular sign. I summon the blade of the wind. A stream of air bursts from his palm, sharp as a razor, cleanly cutting through the wooden body of the totem. The upper half fell to the ground with a heavy, dull thud. He knows well, and his people burst into mocking laughter. This is not. Abel is silent, his face seemingly impenetrable, nothing to read. Giles rushes to his side. Anisama, but Abel has already decided. A cold flame has already ignited within him, and he says it with a voice without emotion. All right then. If that's how it will be, I'll take this seriously. His new battlefield is the Eastern Forest. Later, Abel's friend, Korget, complains that he has been dragged into another adventure again. You are so mean, Abel. Gizel-chan has already gone home. Abel says to set a watch on the top of the log he is carving. I won't force her to stay with us. Enough talking, get to carving. Gargot stands confused. Are you seriously trying to make me stay out here? Stop, why do you even want to put Karlko house out of business? The main reason is to get revenge on Mr. Mountain. Apple stops working. Why do you think the leaves are so valuable? He asks. Kurgat answers simply, isn't it because they are hard to grow? Abel instantly cuts in, wrong. Then he reveals the true essence of Karlko's monopoly. Karlko House controls how much they release to the market, and actually growing is not that hard if you manage to stabilize the supply of magic. Kurgat remembers how the village elder grumbled about exactly this. The Karlko family held the monopoly simply because no other faction had that subtle magical control needed for mass production. Abel continues explaining, laying out a big political chessboard before everyone. The chief promotes the idea of making magical or a rural currency a resource that does not disappear after use. But if the price of the leaf they extract falls, Karlko House will be in trouble, so they of course oppose this idea. The chief and the Karlko family are stuck in a cold war, but Karlko's influence is so huge that the chief does not dare to act openly against them. Abel said this with icy confidence. I will strip Karlko House of political power in a way that won't affect the chief. His plan is a real masterclass in economic warfare. Using the highest quality wood to create an army of totems, he will mass-produce high-quality leaves. He will then flood the market. The price of Karlko leaves will collapse to the very bottom, and their monopoly will be broken overnight. When Kroggett asks what will happen if they are defeated, Abel delivers the final devastating stake, and Gizel may or may not be forced to marry in the Karlko house. The burden of the whole world falls on Krosta. This is not a game. This is a war for the future of his friend. Determination hardens within him. Let's do this. When this plan reaches its end, someone will fall. He grabs a carving knife, his voice filled with new resolve. I will make as many totems as I can. Nuswell and his men quietly spy on the edge of the eastern forest. They see a field of totems. Abel set them up. I knew it. He is truly evil, one of the men whispers. They noticed one that looks exactly like the one Nuswell knocked down and started laughing. Oh no, he is going to attack us with totems. But no wave of them falls silent. Watch closely. He commands, you two are real idiots. Those are scarecrows. They are totems for gathering leaves. They will not attack anyone. His men finally understood their mistake. Looking back, it turns out he is seriously trying to grow leaves, isn't he? They say mockingly that it is too big a task for one person. Ridiculous. To raise something of this scale, you need 20 people, and each must have considerable magical power. One of his men warns anxiously, don't dismiss it. His magic is really powerful, and even the leader himself acknowledges his advantage. Nuswell thinks, maybe this is a carefully planned conspiracy between teacher and student. He makes his move a fatal mistake. You two, track the chief's house. Don't let Abel ask him for magical support, but Nuswell completely misjudged his opponent. He relied on false information and had no idea that 2 years ago Abel single-handedly defeated the king of the forest. He had no clue how tirelessly the boy studied magic. Abel had so much strength that he could single-handedly supply a constant flow of energy to 50 growing totems. After 2 weeks, the results were undeniable. A whole field of mature totems with leaves towered a light, stunning victory. Kurgat is delighted. Abel, you are incredible. At first, I even doubted whether we could pull this off, but we really did it. I also expected Noswell to intervene, but nothing happened. He taught his creatures skillful gestures, probably thanks to you too, Mr. Mountain number 2 and number 3. Their harvest ripened and blossomed. The time has come. It's time to gather the leaves. Meanwhile, Noswell's spies report from their post near the chief's residence. Strange, we are here every day, but neither the chief nor Abel has entered or left even once. Noswell wondered, could it be that he admitted defeat and gave up? Another spy ran up and asked what news from Bellick's house. His little sister just left, but Abel was not there. Nuswell decides to find out for himself and meets Giselle on the road. Her huge wolf Firo growled quietly. What are you doing near my house? She asked Kula. No, nothing like that, Nuswell stammered. I'm just looking for Abel. Abel, she replies. Abel hasn't visited for a long time, you know. Her wolf growl, growing louder, makes the nobleman and his retinue scatter in horror. As they retreat, Noswell puts it all together. Stupid Lupus, if she's telling the truth, there is no sign that Abel conspired with the chief. What an idiot, no doubt. All the totems in that field are already like dry logs, and he bowed his head and gave up. A cruel, self-confident smile spread across his face. No one can compare to Karlko when it comes to growing leaves. Gizel watches them go, thoughtful. What has Abel done that the eldest son of the Karlkoi house is loitering near my house? Something was wrong. His entry into adult life was already at the doorstep, but her brother behaved stranger than ever. Or she sighs and pushes the thought away. And what of it? It still doesn't concern me. In the Bellick house, Greget's father sets fire to one of the freshly gathered leaves. Oh, the leaves are simply wonderful today. How exactly? Abel enters carrying a full bag of his goods. This is completely different from what I have smoked so far. In the forest, the final preparations are being completed. The battlefield is ready. The trading market is arranged. The date is set ahead is Abel's coming-of-age ceremony. The day has come. Noswell stands in the market, and a predatory gleam burns in his eyes. Across the square, Abel meets his gaze. The air crackles with tension. This is war. The ceremony is over, and Abel is left alone to decide what to do. He allowed himself a quiet moment and watched the peasants from afar. Exhaling a thin stream of smoke from a long pipe, his thoughts were already far ahead, calculating the next move of his plan. The heaviness of the official meeting slowly drained his strength. He sighed heavily, the fatigue from all these formalities finally caught up with him. "You damn boy, well done," his father Garia exclaimed, patting him on the shoulder. Abel grimaced, struggling with the heavy ceremonial robes. He smiled and continued, "So, when is the official ceremony?" Abel waved off the joke. His thoughts were on more important matters. Gory's eyes fell on a pouch with unusual leaves. "Oh, what is this?" He looked around and suddenly realized that his son had disappeared. So where did she run off to at such an important moment? Meanwhile, Abel was already at the city market, putting his real plan into motion. Just as he began preparing everything, Goria suddenly appeared behind him. "I suspected you were snooping around somewhere, but I didn't think you'd go this far." Interested, he gestured toward the goods. "Hey, do you have samples?" "Can I try?" Garia took a drag from the pipe, his eyes wide with surprise. "What a taste," he exclaimed, while Abel remained reserved, only thinking that he didn't particularly like the smoke. Suddenly a man burst through the tent flap and desperately called Abel's name. In the noisy bazaar, the man apologized warmly and incessantly. "I thought I had found a wonderful free spot, so I started preparing," he explained, confused. "But I noticed it too late." Somewhere else his voice faded when he looked at the overcrowded stalls. And then he saw where Abel had laid their simple mat right in the very center of the bazaar. "Hey, this is the best spot you could get for us." Abel's eyes lit up with strategic fire. "Well done, now let's sell, sell, sell until everything is sold out." But the older man was gripped by horror. He pointed at the luxurious stall directly opposite them and shouted, "Are you out of your mind?" Panic only grew in him. "No, we won't get away with this so easily. Selling the same goods right next to them is like pouring oil on the fire." But Abel was completely calm, with a slight smile on his face. "Come on, Shibai, you have enough courage." "Dude, calm down," Abel said, putting his hand on his shoulder. "People who are looking for frankincense leaves gather here. If we're lucky, this will definitely be a big score." After 10 minutes it became clear, their optimism was misplaced. Not a single buyer even approached their stall, while the Karoko family's booth was teeming with people. Without batting an eye, Abel turned to his sister and said, "Gizzle, please bring the totems I made yesterday, the red and the blue." She nodded. "Understood, Nisama." His partner looked puzzled. "What are you going to use those totems for?" Abel smiled mysteriously. "It's just a little secret weapon I made." Suddenly a smug figure approached their empty stall. "Noswell, heir of the Karoko family. Well, well, who would have thought you'd managed to start mass production?" He looked disdainfully at their small pile of goods. "Your help was in vain." He thought he would have to find out who helped this impudent one. "Frankincense leaves in my family are years of honed craftsmanship. They are a branded product," he boasted, pointing with a contemptuous finger and comparing with what a boy like you would make. "Ours are on a completely different level." Abel's face remained calm, but infusing magic into totems to forcibly produce incense spoils the tradition of your house. Your house supplies poor quality products, you know, and if you hide bad taste with additives, that's a truly cheap trick. A couple of sharp words and Abel tore apart the rival's business model, then sat down. "Hey, pick that up, I'm a customer." Nuswell snorted contemptuously, threw a bunch of leaves at his feet. "1 akal copper coin for 5 bunches, quite enough." Then with a malicious smile, he lowered his boot and rubbed Abel's goods into the dirt. He turned to the crowd, and his voice, loud and commanding, rang out above all. "Listen everyone, if any of you buy from this guy, you understand how it will end, right?" Abel's hand clenched into a fist, a spark of rage flashed in his eyes. At that moment Jizzle turned and said, "Nayasama, sorry to keep you waiting." She placed 2 roughly carved totems on their mat. "Just in time," exclaimed Abel. Their companions froze and stared at these items. Ajizel explained, "The red totem has magic that helps sales flourish, and the blue one can attract buyers." Abel pointed towards Carlo Costalla. Their clients were already waiting wearily there, because transactions were going too slowly. "I am confident in our taste, and our price is half of theirs," he continued, and a plan appeared in his eyes. "If we just lure a few customers, we can turn everything around." And then he showed his trump card. The totems had no magic at all. The spell circle he found in the book, but it didn't work. It was pure psychology, a simple cat figurine to arouse curiosity. "Isn't that amazing?" he asked with a radiant smile. The comrade looked at him as if he were crazy. But just when everyone was ready to question his sanity, Abel's father came with a large group of men and addressed his son. "Hey, Abel, that test product you gave me, I distributed it to several others. Everyone is thrilled. Sell me enough so I have a solid stock." The guys behind him all nodded enthusiastically, and all, as if with one voice, said, "Sell me more." Abel's plan just got the boost it needed. The group rushed to the counter like a crowd. "This is incredible. This is truly unique," one of them exclaimed. "As if everything I smoked before was just moldy leaves," someone shouted, "both pleasant and cheap." The noise and this exquisite smell began to attract attention. Even the people in line at Carl Cole's couldn't help but notice the sweet smell coming from Abel's counter. When a man, hearing the price from Carl Co., completely abandoned his queue and rushed there, "Can you really sell so cheaply? I bought 50 packs. And that was enough. The dam broke. The whole crowd from the Carl Coast counter rushed at them. "Sell me some, please. I was first." No swell watched in horror as his client base evaporated in seconds. The small counter immediately drowned in the crowd. Abel shouted through the noise, "Gizzle, please continue bringing those things from the warehouse." The situation was still chaotic. It seemed like a real hustle here. A friend named Philo noticed this and ran over to help. "I can help with the lines." Nusswell's subordinate panicked. The son shouted, "Let's lower the price, otherwise we're doomed." But Nusswell himself got tangled in family pride, and the father barked, "Fools, I can't do that. Keep the price at any cost." In despair, he tried to slip ahead of the queue to Abel's counter. Abel calmly stood in his way, said, "Oh, excuse me, could you please go to the end of the line?" and met Nusswell's fierce gaze with a calm smile. From behind Nusswell came a deep voice, and who could it be? There stood a large burly man in a fur coat, radiating authority. It was Norman Karlkow, the head of the family. Nusswell froze, stammering, "Dad." But Norman ignored him, his cold eyes fixed on Abel. "Who are you, and who the hell put you in charge of the store?" Abel simply pointed with his thumb over his shoulder. "My name is Abel, sir. Nusswell is over there." Norman Karlkow looked at his son, then at his empty counter, and again at the river of customers rushing to the boy on the simple mat. He narrowed his eyes, and a glimmer of recognition flashed in his gaze. "Abel, are you the guy from the Blake family, obsessed with totems?" A moment of silence passed, then Norman Karlkow threw his head back and burst out laughing. He laughed so hard that he stumbled and fell to the ground. Nusswell blushed with shame. "Dad, pull yourself together." He sharply turned to Abel, his face distorted with rage. My dad is fragile, got it? How are you going to pay for what you've done?" He lunged forward with a murderous look. "I will kill you." "Everyone back," shouted Abel, rising to meet the threat. And then the market square suddenly fell silent as the two stood facing each other. Garia watched from the side, completely indifferent. Oh, wonderful, the head of the Karlko family together with his son. He calmed the frightened Gizzle. After all, he should be able to restrain himself, so probably everything is fine. Thoughts raced through Abel's mind. "I can easily kill a giant bear with my magic, but it has to look like self-defense, so I cannot attack first." Now he began to utter a spell. Magic gathered around him. It was the necessary beginning, and he exclaimed, "Oh, light!" His magical tool materialized in his hand. And as soon as the Noswell magic circle appeared, Abel instantly analyzed it. The formula was crooked. It cannot be rewritten, because it is broken at its very root. Hand from afar confirmed his thoughts. Norman is indeed a skilled mage, but his son is a fool who has put in no effort. The spell was just a bluff, a fake. Nusswell relied on the magical tool that only amplified power, but this tool could not compensate for his lack of skills. "If you're going to play like that," Abel replied instantly. "Oh, fire, form, sphere." Before him appeared a huge sphere of swirling flames that overshadowed Noswell's pathetic attempt. Before his opponent could even scream, Abel cast another spell. Oh, earthly form. A giant stone wall burst from the ground. It intercepted the fireball and instantly changed its shape. It towered over them, a huge stone golem. "Forward, Yamasan number 4, Abel ordered. The golem swung its colossal stone fist, and Noswell just froze, paralyzed with sheer terror. He let out a pitiful scream as the fist came down on him. Gizzle watched with wide-open eyes. I wouldn't call that restraint. Abel stood calmly amid the ruins and mocked the enemy. "What's wrong? Attack me from everywhere." He saw through Noswell's pathetic attempt to lure him into a trap, to lower his guard. That wouldn't happen. Finally, Noswell broke down. Tears rolled down his face, and he shouted, "Save me, Noswell-san." It was then he realized the truth. The entire attack, those showy magical moves, it was all an empty threat. He was just bluffing. 10 days later, the consequences of that clash reshaped the village economy. Rumors about Abel's better and more affordable incense leaf spread like wildfire. The Carlico family's monopoly collapsed, their prices plummeted, and the people they oppressed finally broke free from their grip. Noswell approached Abel, trembling, holding out a basket of goods. Abel looked at him without pity. "Don't cause my father's heart more pain than you already have," Noswell begged. Until now they had been profiting unfairly, doing nothing. Abel said coldly, I hope from now on they will work honestly and diligently. The frightened Noswell ran away. Abel smiled thoughtfully. He had already handed over the management of the new fields to the village chief, so that the profits would benefit everyone. As for him at the first sales, he had already made a considerable fortune. Exactly the money he needed to finance his next grand project. He immediately plunged into research. He examined his new creation, a large boxy car. It seems everything is ready, but emic door cannot withstand the load from that pile of magical power needed for prolonged operation. The machine still needs a few adjustments, but for a while it works perfectly. His main bold goal is to revolutionize agriculture in the village. Products were expensive because the land was farmed inefficiently. He will build a tractor. In a broad sense, this is also a totem, he thought, looking at his prototype. The totem truck the first step towards it. Gizel watched him work, a smile playing on her face. The weather was wonderful, and it was fun to watch. Abel lay on the flat platform of the truck. Really, shouldn't you go have fun with your girlfriends from time to time? She just shook her head. If I have Nisama, that is quite enough for me. Suddenly a thought flashed through Abel. Gisela is already 14. She hardly ever left him. She only spoke to others when she absolutely had to. He realized that this was unhealthy. If she remained like this until adulthood, it would be a problem. He needed to talk to his father. That night he found Garia calmly resting. "Father, what is this?" Garia asked. "Is it somehow connected to your sheet of incense?" "No, it's about Gisla," Abel replied. "I just hope you won't become the second family of Karl Cow." His father changed the subject. "Oh, now that you're an adult, you want to talk about it?" "Yes, Gisla will also become an adult in 2 years. When will the ceremony be?" Abel was confused. Garia looked at him as if it was the most obvious thing in the world. "Of course you're in Gisla's wedding." These words hit Abel like a physical blow. "What?" He stammered. Wait, why Gisla and me? We're brother and sister, related by blood, right?" His father explained the terrible truth. In the Marin clan, it is customary for brothers and sisters to marry when the brother becomes an adult. If they are less than 5 years apart, you have to know this. The world around Abel seemed to collapse. What the hell? The words struck Abel like lightning. His mind spun from the sheer absurdity of what was said. His brother stood before him, and there was no hint on his face. "You don't want to?" he asked simply, but in this question lay the weight of an entire culture, and Abel was only now beginning to feel it. And in Abel's mind, it raced. He tried to comprehend this terrible revelation. He had always understood marriage as a political and social agreement, a sacred bond that unites two separate families, forging alliances and the future. But this was something completely different. "What are you saying?" stammered Abel, and his calm began to crack. His brother answered so matter-of-factly that it sent chills down his spine. "Even I married my younger sister." The confession struck like a physical blow. The brother explained that this was the main custom of the Marin clan, a tradition that grew out of magical theory. The stronger the bond between the parents, the stronger the magical power of their children would be, he said. He saw deep sorrow on Abel's face and misinterpreted it. "I can't believe you dislike it so much. I thought you always spoiled Gizel." Abel tried to object, but his brother waved him off and attributed everything to simple older brotherly love. Patting him condescendingly on the head, he said, "You are now an adult member of the Marin clan. Take this opportunity and become one in reality." The next morning Abel woke up in a cold sweat. The terrible reality of his situation crashed down on him. Knowing this village and my annoying father, he thought they would definitely start preparing our wedding, and he had to stop it at any cost. The first thing he thought of was Gizel. He was so absorbed in his magical research, trying to rediscover the science of his old world, that he had not learned the simple local customs at all. If the reincarnated person with an adult mind suspected nothing, then Gizel, almost certainly, was also in the dark. Abel recalled how another boy, Nuzwell, persistently tried to approach Gizel, but was completely ignored, and now Abel understood. Nuzwell was probably doing it to spite me. Nuzwell knew the customs. He knew the prize. A plan began to form in his sharp strategic mind. Relatives must never marry, he decided. The solution was simple. He and Gizel would become a united front. No matter how attached Gizel was to me, I am sure she will not like this. Together they will go to father and force him to abandon this crazy idea. Just as he finalized the strategy, a gentle voice called, "Good morning, Nisama." Dizzle stood there, a vision of grace, and Abel's carefully thought-out plan stuck in his throat. She kindly scolded him for staying up late. "Didn't sleep all night again. No matter how well the potions work, I forbid you to overwork yourself." Trying to get back on his feet again, Abel decided to change the subject and showed his newest creation, a cart powered by magic. "I just finished it a minute ago," he said, trying to distract her. Dizzle's eyes lit up with admiration. "Wow, so you solved the problem. Then when everything is ready, please let me be the first to record it." He explained his upgrade. He replaced the original magical ore from Emic with Letta so that it would last longer. And just as she was about to continue celebrating, he raised his hand. Wait, before that. It was necessary to put an end to this. He took a deep breath, gathering courage. I need to talk to you, Gizzle. You will probably be surprised. He laid out the facts and explained that everyone was talking about them getting married soon. Gizzle's eyes widened in shock, but her face instantly blossomed with pure, sincere bliss. Phew. Abel suddenly felt empty in his head, Gizzle beamed with joy. Your coming-of-age ceremony was just recently, so it seemed to me that it was still far away. It never occurred to me that everything would happen so quickly, and that you yourself would push for it. Her eyes sparkled with tears of joy. I am so touched, she exclaimed. 10 years ago, my mother told me about this. Since then, I have dreamed of this moment to become Nisami's wife. A flash of memories confirmed his worst fears. Their mother had been preparing Gizzle for this fate since she was little. The world around Abel seemed to melt away in static noise. His plan was not just wrong, it turned out to be catastrophically mistaken. Gizzle, completely unaware of the storm in his soul, continued. I understand that Isama is insanely drawn to magic, so I was sure that this passion would grow into a strong feeling for your future family. I was going to wait for you all this time. She looked at him with such adoration, with such expectation, that Abel felt as if a weight of a promise that had lasted a whole decade, and of which he had no idea had fallen on him. Panic seized him. He needed a way to escape. The book storage, it still needed fixing, and I must get to the chiefs at all costs. But he began to retreat, babbling nonsense. We will still talk about the matters with the frankincense leaves. Next time for sure. He ran away, leaving behind a somewhat puzzled but still shining Gizla. And when he disappeared, she turned into the void, her voice filled with calm determination. As I said, let's hold the wedding ceremony in 3 days. She clenched her hands in excitement. In 3 days so soon. Nearby, another woman noticed that Abel seemed completely uninterested. But his brother just shrugged, and it didn't matter. He easily goes with the general flow anyway. As soon as the ceremony ends, he will calm down. Soon the village elder found Abel, hoping to consult with him about the fields where they grew leaves for frankincense. But Abel, whose head was swirling with conflicting thoughts, could only brush him off. Could this wait a little? He retreated to a shelter among the book storage, and completely broken in spirit, sat down leaning against the shelf. Here was the essence of his trouble. Memories of a previous life in a world with different values and ethics made him an anomaly. In this world, they believed that the souls of the dead become spirits, again a comforting circle of life. But he was living proof that this belief was false. He was a soul that belonged to a completely different universe. For years, he fled from confronting those cultural contradictions, hiding in the quiet world of research. Now this delay had driven him into an impossible situation. But most of all, he was worried not for himself. It was for Giselle. She had been raised all her life as if this were her destiny. She was very withdrawn, a fan of magic, hiding from the world, and if this marriage took place, she would hardly ever be able to find a true relationship with anyone else, and over time it would turn into a terribly lonely fate. The weight of her future pressed on him. Suddenly, a heavy scroll fell from the top shelf and hit him on the head with a dull thud. He unrolled it, and his eyes instantly widened. Before him was a map of the lands beyond the village. At that moment, a new desperate move ripened in his mind. Eyes that had previously been clouded with despair now burned with cold determination. Yes, I will leave the village. The logic was relentless. If he disappeared, his parents would be forced to cancel the marriage. In his absence, his sick sister would have no choice but to communicate with others, and so that she could find her own path, he began gathering the necessary books and totems. He would run away tonight. The chief noticed him from the balcony. Be sure to return them. Abel, confused but determined, threw a short "all right" and ran on. His escape was almost ruined when he ran into Philo. Abel, congratulations on the wedding. The news was already spreading. Wait, how did you hear about this? The short one pointed. I saw your father walking around telling everyone about it. Of course, his father was squeezing him, using social pressure as the bars of a cage. He had to leave right now. Body, you have saved me so many times. Thank you for that, he shouted and ran away. Philo stood and watched him leave, completely confused. You don't need to say it as if this is our last farewell. He returned home and immediately launched the first stage of his plan. I am going to dive into research, so please don't come into my room, he told his brother, recalling the incense leaves as a cover. His brother sighed, waved him off like a little rascal, and let him do whatever he wanted. From the shadows, Gizzle watched him walk away, her determination unshaken. If he is going to shut himself in, then I will just leave and continue preparing for the ceremony. In his room, Abel barricaded the door with stacks of heavy books. There was a knock. It was Gizzle offering to bring him something to eat. No, it's okay, I already ate at the chief's, he lied, and his heart was pounding wildly. Her voice trembled with anxiety. Please, make sure you don't faint from exhaustion halfway through the way. He put a calming tone into his voice. All right, sorry for making you worry. When her footsteps faded, he leaned against the door and let out a trembling sigh. In the dim candlelight, he wrote a simple note, the last message to sever all ties. I will leave until I hear that Gizel got married, or until I get married myself. Until then, goodbye. Having finished preparations, he activated his faithful totems, which he had filled with supplies. He quietly slipped out of the fortified room and crept through the silent house. Standing outside, he looked at his home one last time. A strange nostalgia overwhelmed him. Once I used to sneak out like this, and probably this is the last time. He reached the fence where he hid his new invention. At the quiet launch command, the totem truck hummed and came to life. The cart rolled into the darkness, and a sudden pang of guilt pierced him. Gizel. He knew this law by heart. People of the Marin clan were forbidden to leave the village without the chief's permission. The punishment was merciless. Those who broke the rules were not allowed back. It was exile. A single tear ran down his cheek as he imagined a future where he would only be able to watch her from afar. After the night ride, he woke up yawning as the sun began to rise. Looking at the map, he charted his route. His path led to Lomarn, a bustling trading city, the perfect place to disappear. Their information was thriving, and strange magical devices were sold, which were not found in his isolated village. The thought of new knowledge, new magic, and new life filled him with sincere admiration. Suddenly the cart jerked sharply and threw him forward. Ouch. And in the village, his father's roar of rage echoed through their home. That Abel. He stood in the boy's empty room, the abandoned letter proof of the son's betrayal, and thought that he had fled. His brother suggested that it might just be a test of the new totem. But Gizel Kalman, composed and calm, gently dismissed the idea of raising the alarm. I believe everything will be fine, she said in a quiet, confident voice. Her hand clenched, and the letter in her hands crumbled into pieces. An eerily calm smile appeared on her lips, and her eyes shone with a troubled glow. I believe in Nisamo. For miles, Abel stood and could not believe his eyes, looking at the cause of his sudden stop. He was kindly allowed to travel in the luggage compartment, a small price for a guaranteed escape. The carriage rattles along the path and takes him away from the village he so desperately wanted to leave. His thoughts drift to the people he just met, those eyes and that hair, such recognizable features. Young James, with a nervous voice, explains his situation. What are you doing so far here? We couldn't understand each other, so I ran away from home. Abel notices details that make you part of the Marin clan. The girl Maya interjects, and then one just like me. Abel Fane said in surprise, really? I thought you were a traveling couple, and Maya explains that James came to her village to trade and eventually took her with him. Then James clarifies that they met just a week ago, just like me. Abel allowed himself to ponder. Your explanation was also about customs you can never get used to. James reveals the truth about his companion. Maya is from the clan of Doom, and it turns out that the absence of a magical crystal on her forehead is a problem. Maya touches her forehead and tells, their people always have 2 horns and a crystal on the forehead, but she lost hers when her mother fell during pregnancy. The crystal, she explains, can peel off like a scab, but once it falls off it never grows back. Contempt poured not only from strangers, even her own mother, ashamed of having given birth to her, looked at her indifferently. Maya pulls out a jingling pouch of coins. She went and took this with her, mother's secret savings. James is shocked, and Abel understands everything immediately. This is not stolen, it is taken as compensation for a lifetime of abuse. Maya said this with new optimism. From now on she will gladly explore the wide world together with James-san. As they walked, Abel suddenly noticed something in the forest ahead. A guttural roar cuts through the air. 3 monster wolves, with backs covered in crystals, emerge from the trees. Harm, a variant of hounds, Mia howled in horror. Abel recalls a passage from a book about magical organisms. They are a type of beasts born from the fusion of magical power. Their appearance is sudden, like a natural disaster that is hard to predict. The lead Harm lets out a terrifying roar while Mayus shouts to his driver, James-san, speed up, please, and Abel knows that the most dangerous animal around his village is the bear, considered a threat of rank D or higher. James shouts, ignore that, we need to run from them. Throw all the luggage off the cart, maybe we'll get lucky and it will attract their attention, but the beasts are already approaching. James turns to Abel, despair in his eyes. Abel-san, you are from the Marin clan, right? Can you do magic? Abel answers calmly and confidently, a little yes. Just enough to scare them a bit, and that will be enough. Use everything you can. If we don't destroy or capture them, they will become a problem for other travelers. No. Abel raises his wand, expressionless. Anything will do, faster, urges James, and with a simple spell, O Earth, create form, Abel releases his power. The earth simply explodes beneath their feet. A colossal fist made of soil, tens of feet high, crashes down on the advancing Harms, instantly turning them to dust. The shockwave from its impact ripples through the air and waves. James and Maya freeze in stunned silence, looking at the golem Abel created. Turning back to them, surrounded by debris after his careless display of power, Abel asks, "Do you think this will be enough?" James can only whisper one word: madness. Later that evening, the group camped by the river, the golem silently standing guard nearby, and Abel's spell not only protected them, but also brought fresh fish for dinner. The next day, their journey continuous mood has become much lighter. When they climb to the top of the hill, James points ahead. "Now you see it." Well, this is Lamarn. The carriage approaches the city gates, which spread out behind high walls. Suddenly, James says that here they will have to part ways. Maya is shocked. Abel calmly explains the logic here. "Nothing can be done, right? I doubt any of us could be useful to a traveling merchant." James sincerely thanked Abel for the help and admitted that without him, he would have been in big trouble. She's still embarrassed. Maya suddenly extends a pouch of coins to James and says she will buy all his wheat so that he has nothing left to do. Her sudden gesture stunned James. He was left speechless. Maya sharply turns to Abel and grabs his hand. Abel, you won't leave Maya, right?" Scientific curiosity sparkles in her eyes. "Wait, you haven't taught me advanced totem engraving techniques yet." Maya really wants to hear more about magic. Abel simply agreed a companion can be useful, especially since he knows no one here. She leans closer, conspiratorially raising her savings. "Really, you should keep this. Turn it on. If you want something, Maya will buy it." The city was a completely different world compared to the quiet village he had left behind, a sprawling metropolis teeming with life and noise. As they made their way through the bustling streets, Maya's eyes widened at the sight of a vendor's stall piled high with bright red apples. But Abel's attention was fixed on another, more specific place, a cozy shop called the Chimera's Tale, where magical and alchemical supplies were sold. His gaze instantly passed over the shelf with enchanted trinkets and rare reagents, and fell on a large, inconspicuous block of wood in the corner. The saleswoman, a woman with a noticeable witch's aura, noticed his keen focus. "Oh, a customer with a sharp eye," she remarked. "It has been standing there for some time, but you are the first to show more interest in it than anything else." "What is this?" Abel asked, feeling his senses already trembling from the immense power inside. The witch smiled and replied, "This is not a trunk, this is a branch." She told of its origin. In the very heart of the forest stood a legendary tree. The magic around it was so powerful that it gave birth to many fierce monsters, and once a famous group of 4 heroes entered that forest to summon the monsters, only one returned. That lone survivor, having lost all his legendary equipment, escaped with only this single branch, which he later sold for an astonishing price. Abel felt a surge of magical energy so immense that it seeped outside despite a powerful barrier. Thoughts raged in his mind from this power. A totem of incredible might could be created. "So these are the magical tools in your homeland?" the witch asked with interest. "In that case," she added, pulling out a small sealed vial, "maybe this, unicorn blood." She explained that it was a consequence of panic caused by monsters, a catastrophic event when swarms of unicorns appeared, and where they came from was a complete mystery. The gears in Abel's head spun lightning fast. The branch in blood and these gears together would be the perfect foundation for his craft and would allow him to create a flawless masterpiece. The seller named its price 2,100,000 in gold. The figure shocked him. Abel's own supplies, valuable aromatic incense leaves from his homeland, were considered worthless here, in the kingdom of Lamarn, and in fact, he was completely without money. Just as he began to feel the full weight of his financial problems, a heavy pouch thudded on the counter, and Maya, with a determined look, offered to pay for everything herself. "You will even have extra money left over," she said. "Maybe we should exchange it all right here." Abel froze in surprise, trying to refuse her incredible generosity, but Maya insisted. The witch, sensing that this could be a huge sale, made a deal. "Fine, for you 2,050,000. Maya found a justification for the buyer after all. The chance to buy a piece of the world tree happens only once in a lifetime. She was already celebrating, dreaming of a cozy home that the remaining money would be enough for. Returning to his room, Abel sat before the branch of the world tree, and his mind was already calculating the next step. The witch's parting words echoed in his head for a long time. She invested money, betting that he could quickly raise the value of the branch, and promised to buy back the finished product for twice or even 3 times the price. This was not just a purchase, it was a contract. With a single act, he would create the most powerful totem in the world, repay Maya for her faith in him, and secure his future. He had a debt, and it had to be paid off. After a night of intense, focused work, it was ready. Abel lifted the finished totem, a masterpiece of curse art, pulsating with raw power. With it, he could achieve almost anything. But those enormous efforts took their toll. He collapsed from severe exhaustion, and to stay conscious even a little, he needed a potion. Maya rushed to him when he fainted, calling his name. Thoughts drifted away. He found himself not in the tavern, but in the familiar walls of his old storeroom, surrounded by his old creations. Memories of his escape suddenly surged, a broken truck on the road to Lamarna, and then suddenly a sharp sensation as if he was bound. He woke up in bed and saw Gizel in front of him. She apologized for restraining him, saying she did it so he wouldn't do anything reckless again. "Please don't do anything so dangerous anymore," she said, smiling calmly. He realized with growing horror that she misunderstood his escape, confusing it with one of his more unpredictable experiments. But that couldn't be true. She handed him a bowl of stew, explaining that it was a tradition of the Marin clan. He remembered the letter he left, and a chilling thought: Gizel was the only other person who could have ruined his truck. The terrible truth suddenly clicked in his head. This food was a trap, and tasting it would mean giving up his freedom forever. In the fog of a feverish dream, he apologized for leaving without saying a word. He tried to explain so that she would understand. He thinks completely differently from them. He froze in shock. She seemed to accept his words. "I understand, Niasama." She pushed the food aside and insisted, "Drink at least some water." Believing that she understood, he agreed. Her sweet smile returned. "Isama simply doesn't understand what's happening here, right?" And then the ultimate betrayal. Steel flashed, and a sharp, burning pain pierced him as she stabbed him with a knife. While he was choking in agony, she calmly spoke a sealing spell. The wound healed, but the damage remained locked inside. He screamed not from pain, but from the piercing realization that was approaching. His tongue was numb, the water was poisoned. "It's okay, Nisama," she whispered, her voice devoid of remorse, "even if you can no longer walk. I will always be near to take care of you." Paralysis was rising up his leg, and he desperately tried to summon his magic to resist this terrible fate when suddenly a familiar voice called his name. Abel's eyes instantly opened. He found himself again in the tavern. Maya leaned over him with worry, but the entire room, walls, floor, ceiling, was covered with an extensive, incredibly complex magical circle that pulsed with an ominous glow. He was still lying in bed, drenched in cold sweat. But he froze, looking at the glowing runes. "I did it." The scale of his power is frightening. This subconscious creation is a doomsday weapon, a spell that theoretically can destroy anything. "My own talent is frightening," he whispered, stunned by horror. "What dream did you have?" Maya asked, and he let out the truth before he could restrain himself. "I had a truly terrible dream. It seems I did it unconsciously. I almost erased this entire region." He immediately retreated, saying he didn't remember any details. Maya, feeling relieved, simply noted that his fever had finally subsided. He slept for a day and a half. He thanked her for her care, and she blossomed with a smile. Abel looked at the totem. A new plan was maturing in his mind, to sell it and make a lot of money. But at the very thought, Maya looked depressed. "You don't want to sell this thing, do you?" Abel asked. She admitted no and reminded him that it was a gift. He changed his mind after all. They still had expenses to cover. Maya suggested another idea, the Adventurers Support Center, a place where money was paid for killed magical beasts. With Abel's power, it would be just perfect. He agreed it really was a smart strategy. In the village of Marin, the consequences of Abel's departure began to make themselves felt. A search party sent by the chief found his abandoned truck. Seeing the engraving, they immediately understood it was his, and the search was stopped. Convinced that he had simply run away, Giselle locked herself in her room and sank into deep despair. Her relatives watched with anxiety, quietly whispering about her depressed mood. She looked out the window, consumed by one question: why wasn't he coming back? In a fit of irritation, she struck the table with her fist. That night, a strange, shadowy object floated weightlessly to her window, carrying a message: "I found a way. So that you could get that guy." And in the shadow, a figure with a terrifyingly familiar silhouette offered her a way to return what she had lost. In the noisy Adventurers Support Center, Abel turns his gaze to his companion Maya and asks in a steady voice, "Can you use magic or something like that?" Maya hesitated for a moment. If we're talking about fighting magical beasts." Abel notices her discomfort by the way she looks away. It seems any conversation about her clan is a painful topic, and he correctly guesses that she had previously tried to use her abilities among her own, but instead faced condemnation, so not wanting to press, he diverts attention and says, "Next, please." At the counter, Abel addressed the receptionist clearly and politely. "Thank you, we came from the village, so please explain what this organization does." He already knew the basics, but for a true strategist there were no insignificant details, and he wanted to start from the very beginning. Everything happened instantly, and soon he was holding in his hands a newly issued adventure map, or ID. The name on it was not his, but the pseudonym M. Mountain. Maya looks at him puzzled. "Why did you register under that name?" Abel simply shrugged. It was an impulse, and it seemed there would be no problems. Orientation is ongoing. The main principles of the Adventurers Support Center are explained lively. extermination of magical beasts, general support for adventurers, and search for new talents. An adventurer is evaluated by a simple system, a pyramid from F to A, but for incredible feats, one can rise even higher and earn special privileges directly from the king himself. Abel glanced at the lowest rank F. He did not want to climb this ladder. Reputation and duties were a cage for him, one he never intended to enter. Maya peers at the name on the card, her eyes wide open from sudden recognition. Benefactor. My benefactor's name is Mr. Mountain. Her voice fills with admiration and awe as she tells this story. He saved me when I was previously attacked by packs of magical beasts. If it had continued like that, I would have died. In an instant, he turned all the beasts around me to ashes. Then he completely healed me when I was on the brink of death. Abel's face remained expressionless, but suddenly a memory flashed in his mind. He was sitting at the computer, his character Emp Mountain easily clearing a crowd of monsters around another player. He was talking about an online game, but Maya, unaware of the truth, sees only the legend. Wow, everyone in the Marin clan is so strong, she exclaims, clutching the card as if it were a relic. Seeing her enthusiasm, the conversation instantly shifted as soon as we finish registration. Let's agree on what to do next. Even before they could decide, a loud voice cut through the hall. I thought about this long ago. Mason, I disagree with you. The noisy adventurer with blonde hair sharply turned around, apologetically. No, I also overdid it, sorry. But his comrades are unyielding. I just apologized, let's make peace, he pleads. But the woman named Tio decisively says, if Tio is going to leave, I will go too. Suddenly, the quarrel changes tone. Former party comrades Lisa and Tio confess their feelings to each other and decide to leave together. Maya watches spellbound as the dramatic scene unfolds. Abel throws her a glance. So this is what you pay attention to. He sighs to himself. Don't look too closely. Maya better not to interfere. Mason, the leader of the abandoned party, finally notices them and, approaching with wide strides, shouts, You there, weren't you worried earlier about where to go hunting? Oh, you are wizards. I just need wizard companions. I am the party leader. Why don't we unite? Abel replies with one word, we're fine. One scared off minds and bent down without any conspiracy. I also have a very valuable hunting spot. If you stay with me, I'll even cover the travel expenses. The offer, though suspicious, seemed too tempting. Soon they found themselves in a covered wagon rolling through a dense forest, and finally Abel couldn't stand it and asked, Where is your very valuable hunting spot? Mason explains, the ruins of Zesham are one thing, but hunting in the forest seems much more effective. Lately, it seems several barriers have been removed, and the investigation in those ruins was postponed because after the opening, magical beasts poured in there. He continues his history lesson, and as soon as an ancient structure emerges on the horizon, we skillfully dive into the ruins and take their treasures. Once these ruins were the fortress of the Norks clan people, without special magic, whom the elves expelled from the heavenly land Ulfheim centuries ago. Abel, having found a map in historical documents, immediately gets to the point. The treasure is the legendary secret treasure of the elves. The arrow of God, right, but more likely there should be. Mize nods enthusiastically. Add to that the easy prey for magical beasts in the ruins that will hunt, essentially killing two birds with one stone. The magical stones that supported the barriers and protected the ruins must have considerable value, right? All right, Maya, judging by the plan, it seems infallible. In other words, nothing to worry about. Mason puffs out his chest with undeserved confidence, and I almost an E-rank adventurer and also the leader of this team. Isn't that wonderful? He pays the money, and Abel, sitting opposite, looks at everything with complete indifference. They come and see, the path ahead of them is blocked. Lies, staring, and distrust, even though the ruins stood right before their eyes. Later that evening by the fire, he was boiling with anger. Damn investigative team, just because some lord covers you doesn't give you the right to behave so arrogantly. The guards stood firm. Strangers are not allowed here, go away. Abel saw the truth clearly. Apparently, the information had not yet reached the support center. A lord who knows how to keep a secret treasure would never give it to another, but that's not the point now. We have already come here, so let's wait until dawn, and if the ruins are visible from afar, everyone will probably be satisfied. Mize and Slumps, are you going to give up? Yes, I told you it's impossible. They guard that place so tightly. But his determination instantly returns. Adventure and troubles go hand in hand. If we wait with fierce patience, they will show an opening for. A piercing squeak interrupts him. A magical beast, Me asks tremblingly, and Mason jumps to his feet at the perfect moment. He dramatically draws his sword. I was already annoyed sitting idly. I'll show them what an almost E-rank adventurer with a sword is capable of. Attack me however you want. Abel warns him against this. Hey, calm down. It's not worth revealing our location. But it's already too late. A huge white fluffy beast bursts out of the bushes. May gasped in horror. Mason rushed forward. His blade clashed with the creature's claws. He parries the strike and cuts back, laughing. Ha ha, it's nothing. The wounded beast stumbles backward and lets out a deafening scream. It was not a scream of pain, it was a signal. From the shadows emerged three more identical beasts, their eyes blazing in the firelight, and Mason's courage instantly vanished. Damn. Fear binds him, and the sword slips from his hands. Instinct takes over. While I distract them, you run, he shouts, turning to save his life. When the beasts tighten the circle around the frightened adventurer, Abel calmly steps forward and raises his wand. Yes, good that you are so motivated, but... Quietly, almost indifferently, he utters the spell. Oh, fire burn into nothingness. From his place burst a furious stream of flames that engulfed the monsters rushing at him. The shockwave throws the mice, they fall to the ground. He jumps to his feet and, not believing his eyes, watches the scene. The fire disappears as quickly as it appeared, leaving behind only smoking headless bodies of magical beasts. Abel lowers his wand, his face unchanged. Mason trembles and kneels before him, whispering, "Thank you." Enthralled and full of humility, he makes a desperate offer. The Lilith Bleeder position. As soon as he is in it, Abel won't even glance at him. No, if you like it, keep it. The three of them stand in silence in the clearing, which has finally become safe. But they were not alone in the deep shadows of the forest. An elf with a stern face hid, watching them intently, his eyes narrowing as he examined the young mage. White hair, also red eyes, strange magical circles. He instantly recognized the signs, and a conclusion arose in his mind with eerie certainty. This boy is probably Merin. The elf with the stern face watched the young wizard standing before him intently, his eyes sharp and attentive. The boy's companions looked puzzled. One of them whispered, "The elf, that one." But the elf's gaze was not directed at the boy's face, but at the simple wooden staff in his hand. That staff it is made to enhance control over magic and attract spirits. The elf's voice was soaked with distrust. This does not fit into ordinary theories. Why? How? Cyrus himself froze. This stranger saw the hidden properties of the staff at a glance. "I am using it precisely as an experiment," Cyrus replied. His voice was calm, without a hint of fear. It seemed to me there was no need to amplify this with magic. The elf's face hardened a little. "Oh, you are quite confident." Suddenly, a group of armed men jumped out from the trees, and relief shone on their faces when they saw the elf. "Abel hates Samu. We beg you come back with us." The elf turned to them and spoke. Authority was felt in every word. "I am a representative of the elven race. To study the history of my people, I am researching these ruins." He again shifted his gaze to Cyrus's squad. "If you help me with the research, if you bring results, I will allow you to accompany me. I will definitely negotiate a reward with the Lord." The guards murmured among themselves, and one of them cast a look at Cyrus, full of new respect. Abel hated herself. This mage is more useful than that Wagner. The next day the team stood before the entrance to the ancient structure. Abel Jade turned to Cyrus, and in his eyes was a direct question. "You are the one who broke the barrier, right?" He didn't even wait for an answer. "Exactly so. After many long years of investigations, I finally managed to remove the external barrier. That is why I asked the regional lord for cooperation." Cyrus instantly understood everything. Abel Jade acted alone, turning to the local lord only when he hit a wall he could not overcome on his own. It was a calculated political move. "These ruins," Abel Jade continued, "are made from a strange ore. I believe it is a product of alchemy, neither from the sky nor from this earth." Thoughts raced through Cyrus's mind. Could this sphere hint at how to shed light on these seals? Abel Jade's eyes narrowed. His gaze was piercing. "I have no intention of indulging any of your personal interests." Cyrus felt a chill. The elf saw through his attempt to learn more. "Don't forget who hired you." "Not at all, I had no such intentions," Cyrus quickly replied. Abel Jade just grunted. "You're on guard, boy." One of the other adventurers whispered to Cyrus, "It's the first time I see Abel Hade-sama with such an expression. He's a real capricious one. He doesn't even glance our way." Cyrus could only say to himself mentally, "My God." In the ruins, the proud mage in luxurious robes grumbled loudly. "I can't keep up with the ideas of the great elf Sama. He just wanders and doesn't even touch the magical formulas. And now, he brought some kid from nowhere, and I'm terribly tired of constantly running after him." The man proudly puffed out his chest. "To remove such a seal, you have to check everything more than once or twice and move forward step by step, you know." He returned to the group with a contemptuous smile. There's really no point in checking the magical formulas on the walls, right? There must be a large magical formula somewhere that serves as the foundation." Cyrus spoke frankly, interrupting the man's lecture. "Therefore, analyzing this will not help remove any barriers." The chubby mage wheezed, his face reddened. "How dare you just assume that?" "From what I've seen so far, the barrier seals are the same as those of the pig clan," Cyrus continued in an academic tone. "Just the surface looks different." Abel Hyde nodded approvingly. "Oh, good that you noticed that." Another mage just froze and couldn't say anything. He only clenched his fist in silent rage. considering this impudent man simply a weak mage who could not compete with him. It seems you really should have been brought here, Abel Jade said to Cyrus with a slight smile. Cyrus felt the man's fierce gaze burning his back. Soon they found themselves in a magnificent hall, where a massive stone monument towered above everything. I believe this stone statue is meant to strengthen the core of the seal, Cyrus noted. Abel Jade agreed. You could say this is the heart of the magical formula. Cyrus approached the shimmering barrier blocking the way forward and ran his hand over its intricate patterns. It was a multi-layered puzzle. Several barriers, partially overlapping each other, formed objects of the most diverse nature. Guard asked, is this four-layered? I've heard that two-layered ones almost don't exist. Cyrus shook his head and replied, no, this is a fake with one of the layers. I can't understand how it interacts with the others. Abelheit, deeply impressed, took out a tablet. Here are my notes from all the investigations. When Cyrus saw those complex abbreviated formulas, his eyes widened. Now a high-level conversation about pure magical theory was unfolding between them. The others just watched, completely bewildered. Direct assault to get rid of this seems too radical. Cyrus pondered, his hand hovering over the flickering energy. This is quite troublesome. Better not to destroy it with magic, right? Abel Jade Rayleigh asked. What a silly joke. Magic that could directly shatter this statue would require colossal magical power. Or Cyrus nodded, closed his eyes, and thought. It was supposed to be obvious anyway. Reckless destruction of these ruins would reduce the reward. I am going to leave them completely untouched. He raised his eyes to that magnificent seal. But this complex seal, I wonder what is hidden on the other side. There must be some incredible treasure there. Suddenly a screech sounded behind the large stone doors through which they had entered began to open, revealing a horde of monstrous, roaring hobgoblins. The army surged into the hall, raising their crude weapons high. Wow, what's with these guys? Shouted one of the guards. Maybe they hid in the forest and waited for the right moment to attack us. Plump Wizard began to panic. Damn, we will pave the way. Use that crack to see it. He pointed at the guards. But you want me to run away alone? One of them shouted back with disgust. The cowardly mage then turned to Cyrus. Hey, so who will accompany me? How did this old man even become the Lord's mage? But between them and the horde calmly stepped a figure. It was Abel Jade. Move, he ordered, and a magical circle already shone around his hand. I will make you regret coming here. A searing ribbon of energy surged forward and sliced the hobgoblin in half. Follow me, roared Abel Kate to the guards. If we have their number, they will run. His power was immense and his leadership unquestionable. Amid the chaos, Cyrus watched the battle with cold calculation. Suddenly he shouted to the adventurers, excuse me, could you catch 3 hobgoblins for me, alive? Abelhate looked around, surprised. Only 3. Cyrus's eyes lit up, a spark of genius flared within them. Maybe I can use them to dissolve the seal. The elf understood instantly. The plan was so desperate and brilliant that it simply had to work. A trivial matter, he said, and another powerful spell crackled at his fingertips. After 20 minutes, the battle ended. The guards were breathing heavily from exhaustion, surrounded by the fallen, and before Cyrus lay 3 hobgoblins bound and unconscious. I paralyzed them with magic, he explained to the worried Maya. They won't move for about 92 days. He then put forward a stunning hypothesis. To dissolve this seal, magical power from a certain magical beast is needed. Determining which one will take time, especially since the seal is already 2,000 years old, and there is even a chance that the beast is already extinct. He paused for a moment for effect. So he announced, I thought I could transform the magical power of these guys into a substitute. He began explaining the principles of biomagic, like a master sorcerer, rewriting the biology of a creature with magic, turning its own organs that produce magic into an energy source that emits the same magical frequency as the griffin statue. Abelheit froze in amazement. Now it was clear. I only came to the conclusion that magic of some magical beast is needed, but I did not take your idea into account. The whole idea is only thanks to your notes, Abelheit San, Cyrus said modestly, adding that it is not a fact that it will succeed. First we need to change the organic structure of the hobgoblin, and for this we need to get several magical stones. I have something of the highest quality, Abelheit said, signaling the guard to come closer. The man showed a heavy sack. Cyrus caught his breath. It was full of royal magical stones. Half of them were given by the Lord, Abelheit clarified. Cyrus held a large shining stone in his hands. A passionate, almost mad smile blossomed on his face. From all this, it seems to me that we cannot lose. Maya looked anxiously. You are not doing anything crazy, right? If you can't stand blood, look away. The ritual began. The hobgoblins started to convulse and mutate, their bodies twisted into unnatural shapes. The process was deeply disturbing. The guards watched in horror. Poor goblins, mages are dangerous. It's a demon, someone whispered, turning pale, although not long ago they were slaughtered here. Finally, the grotesque transformation subsided. This should be enough, Cyrus announced, and his voice echoed in the silent hall. He returned to Abelhade and said, I leave the rest to you. The elf nodded. Cyrus extended his hand. A new gigantic magical circle appeared before him. Absorb. The circle wrapped around the three transformed goblins, linking their new magical marks with the ancient statue. It worked. The creatures began to tremble wildly. Energy was drawn from them. A strange miasma swirled around. Wonderful, it's reacting, Cyrus exclaimed. He began to cheer the goblins, calling them by new names he had invented. You can do it, don't die on me. With a final deafening groan, the huge stone doors in front of the statue slid open. The obstacle vanished. The guards burst into shouts and applause. We did it. This is a true historic moment. Finally we can delve deeper. But he could feel the trembling. A shaky pebble rolled across the floor. Something trembled. Abelheight's eyes instantly darted to the griffin statue. It was already full of cracks. The statue shattered into pieces in a flash of dark energy, and from the dust rose a monstrous shadow, while an ancient voice filled with rage echoed through the hall. Damn annoying elves. The monster fully broke free, its power suffocating. Well done for sealing the king, one like me, for 2,000 years. It spread its claws, its eyes glowing with predatory hunger. Each of you will become my sacrifice. The ancient king suddenly lunged forward. The great griffin, a creature from myths and legends, spoke with the voice of a fallen monarch. You managed to seal a king like me for 2,000 years. His form was distorted, a terrible caricature of former nobility, his eyes blazing with ancient hatred. Each of you to the last will become my victim. Abel's eyes widened not from fear, but from an instant tactical reassessment. The power emanating from this beast surpassed any ordinary monster. While his companion lamented losing the chance to tame goblins, the reserved elf Ulhat recognized the true threat. With the calm of an experienced commander, Al-Qaid gave the order. Everyone use our numerical advantage and surround him. He raised his hand, whispering a simple binding spell, and declared, Oh, light bind. Chains of pure energy appeared around the griffin's paw, but the creature shattered them with a single contemptuous stomp. The shockwave threw the other adventurers into the air. Ulhate's gaze fell on Abel. Abel, attack his wings, he ordered. The boy's jaw clenched with rage. How dare you command me after what you did to the Gabu brothers? Knowing that the guardian was the most important, he began to chant a spell, and a complex magical circle spun and came to life around his hand. Oh, wind, take the form of a blade. The griffin fixed its ancient, wise eyes on him. Abel froze. The creature spoke with the spirit knees, the language of the spirits themselves. The keeper laughed at him. Do you really think wind magic will work against me? Abel suddenly realized something terrible, but still cast the spell. He knew only a few chosen magical beasts and demons of the highest rank could understand the needs of the spirit. For the creature to gain this ability, the spirits had to deeply influence it, and this influence transformed it, granting incredible resistance against the corresponding magical element. Griffins were closely connected with the spirits of the wind, so wind attacks could hardly affect them. Abel watched as his carefully crafted blades of wind dissipated and weakly extinguished against the creature's feathers. The griffin let out a triumphant cry. But the beast's victory was cut short. A huge earthen spike burst from the ground and pierced it from below. Abel froze in shock at the sudden turn of events. It was Ulhaid who took advantage of the moment, and now he roared. The adventurers, gathering strength and courage, rushed at the wounded guardian. Seeing how everything ended instantly, Mayer said that Abel's power made the legendary beast much less threatening. But Abel did not look at the fallen griffin. He looked at Ulhaid. His cold, calculated gaze met his own in a silent challenge. Later, before the sealed stone wall, Abel simply uttered one word, open. He pressed his hand to the stone, and a shining circle of the cursed mark spread across its surface. The door slit sparkled and appeared where a solid stone wall had stood just a moment before. It seems the closed window of the ruins opened, said Ulhaid, and a new tension played in his voice. He looked at Abel with a sharp, penetrating gaze, searching for the depths of his power. Other adventurers, blinded by greed, rushed to the new passage, eager to snatch the treasures inside. When their advance was stopped by a sudden noise, a wave of grotesque, rat-like creatures called suifis surged down the corridor. They were drawn by the scent of magic. The team's swordsman smiled, enjoying the challenge, drew his blade to meet the swarm. After half an hour, the fight ended, but the team remained exhausted and drained. When one of them suggested returning back for today, Al-Haid's response was icy, weakness. Only when Abel's companion calmly suggested securing the place so they could rest did the elf finally agree. Abel also felt the tension. His endurance was nearly exhausted, although his magical reserves were still deep. I will hide, he announced as they broke camp. Tomorrow we will resume the investigation. That night by the campfire, Alhide caught Abel intently studying ancient texts. "Is it normal for you not to sleep?" he asked. Abel explained that he had rested earlier and was now using a homemade potion to maintain concentration. Ilhite's eyes narrowed as he examined the vial. "Better not to show this in public." The elf's tone grew grim. "Brewing strange healing herbs is usually forbidden in any country. Moreover, the biomagic you used to dissolve the barrier." Abel froze in surprise. It seems your homeland was truly extraordinary to allow its use. Abel had never thought about the laws of the outside world, and when Alhide offered to take responsibility for him, this gesture became both a shield and a leash. "I am grateful for your kindness," Abel said cautiously. Feigning friendliness, Ulhate shared a piece of his story. "For 300 years I have been searching the ruins of Zesham because I missed one thing in the analysis. I have dragged this on for many years, and I have no descendants to entrust the purpose of my entire life." And then a sharp question was asked. "What made you befriend such a company as they?" He pushed away Abel's companions because he saw only annoyance and burden in them. Abel answered carefully and thoughtfully, explaining that he relies on them during travels, and with provisions it is simple reciprocity. Elhide accepted the answer, and they wished each other good night. As the old elf was leaving, Abel's face hardened. He felt that he was being tested, evaluated for some higher purpose. "I expect great deeds from you, Abel," he thought, feeling the weight of the elf's words. The next day they entered a hall filled with treasures, and the team froze with admiration upon seeing royal-level magical stones, artifacts of incredible power and value. Even Abel could not hide his admiration for the wealth of the ancient elves. Yet Elhide passed by that mountain of riches without even glancing. Abel looked at him, enchanted and completely unmoved by this spectacle. It testified to a purpose beyond mere greed. I approached another sealed door and opened it with a single simple word. Behind it stood a silent army of stone golems, guardians for whom time had stopped. "I will hide Stroud among their ranks as if he is not there at all." A barely noticeable triumphant smile played on my lips. He finally stopped at the threshold of the huge dark hall. "I have finally reached this place," he whispered. "Now he began the spell fire, form, sphere. Instantly Abel became alert. He recognized the high-level spell and rushed to deflect it, but was too late. A devastating explosion sounded, throwing the unprepared adventurers back. He stood at full height and turned around. His eyes blazed with power. A magical circle spun on his palm. "As expected, you are a true wonder, capable of canceling my magical formula even among the high elves, and no one else is capable of that." Around them, the eyes of the stone golems began to glow ominously. Finally, the true nature of Alkite was revealed. "The arrow of God is too powerful for the hands of the minx," he said, and his voice filled with ancient authority sounded. "This belongs to me." He looked directly at Abel. His plan finally became clear. "To me, the descendant of Zesham." Abel froze. Pieces of forgotten history clicked into place with terrible clarity. The descendant of the Zeshams. Before him stood Abel Jade, an ancient elf, and on the sides silent, formidable figures of clay golems. "Indeed," confirmed Abel Jade, and his voice was heavy with the weight of millennia. "We, the people of Zesham, lost our crusade and were expelled from our homeland in the heavenly country." He pointed to his weathered face. "Here below, the magic of the moon barely reaches the surface. Our connection to the moon is fading, our bodies are withering, and our people can no longer reproduce." Abel instantly understood. Accelerated aging, despair. "But I could not renounce my ancestors," Abelhade declared. His eyes blazed with cold fire. "So they built this stronghold, a fortress, from which they oppressed the Norks who lived on the land." He spread his arms as if embracing the terrible grandeur of his plan. "All of this is a weapon created to overthrow the heavenly country and allow us, the Zesham, to reclaim our rightful throne." Mason fired off, not believing, "But the story says that elves were persecuted by the Norks." Maya corrected him, her voice trembling slightly. "This is the complete opposite of the legend we know." But Abel understood everything. Zesham are probably those elves who, 2,000 years ago after a religious conflict, were forced to descend to the earth. "Our king at that time made a grave mistake." Abelhade smiled contemptuously. "The memory of it is still fresh and poisonous. He fell head over heels in love with the daughter of the Norks. That king made a pact with some lower creature and covered the entire fortress with a barrier, sealing our ambitions and our heritage." His face twisted into a mask of pure hatred. "The vile thought to mix our noble blood with those stupid and short-lived Norks is absolutely unforgivable. That king killed my ancestors and then shamefully buried our true history under a mountain of lies." Maya swallowed hard, the poison in his voice sending a chill down her spine. "These golems," Abelhade continued, feeling calm return, "were created by the highest technicians of Zesham." Now the powerless soldiers of the Lord shouted, "You, scoundrel, have been plotting against the Lord all along." Abelgate ignored them. his attention was fixed on the true purpose of the ruins. Now you see this entire complex was built to hide the most precious treasure in the world. A weapon designed to pierce the heavenly country we call the arrow of God. He revealed the core of his power. To fire it, a huge amount of magic stones is needed. From the remains of the barrier I just dissolved, there is enough material for 3 shots. With arms outstretched in triumph, he roared his last wish. I will conquer the earth and then gather all the magic stones. Heaven and earth, everything will be mine. Abel's thoughts raced. He had accumulated that incredible power for one purpose, so why reveal his entire strategy now? Both sides froze in silent confrontation. And at that moment, Abel understood. Abelgate looked directly at the young mage and said, "You are a mage I recognize, Abel. If you make a deal with me, I will give you half the world." Abel is silent, his face like a closed book. Maya held her breath and quietly whispered his name with anxiety. Finally, Abel spoke. His voice was calm and clear. "I'll pretend I didn't hear what you just said." Abel Height's lip curled into a contemptuous smile. "After all, you are just a child. What a pity." He sighed as if the whole matter bored him. Taking you head-on will be an exhausting task. He raised his hand, and dark energy swirled around a complex magical circle. Oh, my asthma of the forest of dreams. Abel's eyes widened with anxiety. Poisonous magical smoke began to fill the chamber. Abel reacted instantly without hesitation. "Transfer my puppet, move it," he ordered, sharply pushing his wooden totem, Mason, forward. The doll flew through the air, and its wooden head absorbed all the poisonous miasma. A powerful absorption force swept through the room like a shockwave, throwing Abel and Maya back. Abel Height watched, somewhat impressed. "So you managed to endure this." As befits Marin, the user of wooden dolls, he raised his hand and said, "Surrender, Abel-san." But Abel responded with that gesture with cold, eerie confidence. "It will be hard to hold back, and in this position I cannot lose, so please surrender." The ancient elf chuckled. "Indeed, if we were not in this room, I would definitely have lost." However, he pulled out a shining command stone. "O golem, obey." The nearest white giant awoke with a menacing rumble, its huge fist glowing with destructive energy. "Watch Abel," ordered Abel Jade. "I will remember your name as the one who made the greatest contribution to the revival of Zesham. Accept that honor and perish. This is a soldier of Zesham, the white giant of destruction." The golem's fist thundered down. The team scattered from the blow. "Too fast," Mizan shouted, but Abel already saw everything he needed. He calmly raised his staff toward the huge automaton. "O golem, obey." Abel Height froze, his face a mask of complete disbelief. "What?" His mind spun. He could not comprehend what he saw. "Impossible. How do you know the activation formula of the Zesham golem? You broke the cipher with a single glance, but without the colossal magical power of the magic stone. The golem does not activate." A shining circle lit up on the golem's chest, mirroring the one on Abel's staff. The giant stood completely still. Abel Height desperately tried to regain control, clutching his command stone. "But you do not have elven blood. You cannot suppress my command. Move, O white giant, move." The golem remained motionless. Abel simply gave another command. "O golem, obey." In response, 2 more golems turned to Abel Height. Their loyalty was completely rewritten. The elf's confidence finally shattered. Under Abel's command, 2 newly acquired golems rushed at Abel Height's last soldier, who dealt a series of devastating blows, smashing the white giant into a cloud of stone fragments. Abel Height stared at the ruins, his plan crumbling before his eyes. This cannot be. He was defeated by mere human magic. He desperately tried to give the last order, "Move, O white giants." But the golems that remained stood silently, a passive army that now belonged to his enemy. Abe dealt the final devastating blow. "I already control all the golems in this room. Trying to bypass my barriers on them is futile." The weight of his complete defeat fell on Abel Height. He fell to his knees. A guttural scream of pure rage and humiliation burst from his throat, echoing in the ancient hall. But just when victory seemed absolute, Abel's eyes widened. "Wait." He froze in shock and failed to react in time. Abel Height disappeared. Only a distant figure, rushing down a long-forgotten corridor, remained. The voice of the elf lord broke with panic. "Wait, Abel Height, I don't know what kind of weapon this is, God's arrow, but I still can't allow him to fire it." At his lookout post, Abel stood firm, a silent guardian before the approaching storm, completely focused. He turned to his little companion. "It will probably be dangerous here, so Maya, stay here. You can help by carrying the World Tree Totem." Maya froze, realizing that her combat skills were not suitable for this clash. Her eyes filled with tears. "So please, don't leave me behind." Abel softened a little. "All right, be ready and follow behind me." "Oh, things have really gotten out of control, haven't they? If necessary, I'll just teleport her to the carriage." And at that moment, Mason shouted with a confident smile on his face, "I'll go too, I can do it. Honestly, I was almost about to run away. because the role of a leader is to stay behind and cover your subordinates. With steel determination, a small group rushed into the depths of the ruins. All right, let's go. But their desperate dash was cut short. Maizen suddenly collapsed, his body gave out. No more, I can't go on. Maizen gasped, sweat pouring down his face. I had no endurance left. The accumulated fatigue from analyzing everything in the ruins finally caught up with me, and the potions were also finished. No. If you don't go, we won't be able to stop him. Abel and Mace looked down at their fallen leader. No, seriously, I can't. Mace was gasping. His legs were trembling. My legs are throbbing. Abel glanced down, his face unreadable. You just need someone to do all the work for you, right? The next moment he effortlessly hoisted the bigger man onto his back. Just don't struggle so much, I'm feeling sick, Maizen weakly complained, and Abel simply asked, why did you become an adventurer? Maizen's voice was quiet. I just needed to earn money quickly. He recalled a moment from the past. When I was a child, I wandered into the lair of a magical creature myself, and just as they were about to attack me, a traveling adventurer passed by and saved me. His voice regained at least a bit of its usual strength. With the strength I have now, I don't believe I can stop Abel Jade. He resolutely looked at the back of Abel's head, but as our current leader, I will do everything in my power to help you, Maizen. Taking his leader on his shoulders, he carried him, and they stubbornly kept going. Soon they found themselves before the entrance to a huge, towering hall. We climbed quite high, didn't we? And very close, maybe right there, Abel Jade. They stepped through the door, and before them unfolds a huge hall with tall columns. Head stretched impenetrable darkness. Too dark, I can't see through, Maizen whispered. A silhouette began to emerge from the gloom. Before them stood a huge wolf-like automaton made of stone and metal, its eyes glowing with the dim light of dormant power. Golem in the form of a beast. Abel spoke calmly, and Maya gasped. It seems Abel activated it. Sitting on Abel's back, Mezun shouted, Abel, can you take control of it, like when we fought other golems in that big hall? And Abel replied grimly, no, I could set a barrier against those humanoid ones, but this one might not work because it had too much time to activate. Maizen's eyes hardened. Abel's mind was already racing, devising a new strategy. Fortunately, this room is so large. He had not yet finished when Maizen suddenly leapt off his back, drew his sword, and charged forward alone. Oh, it's okay, you don't have to risk your life, Abel shouted, but Maizen had already rushed into action. While I distract it, you run past it. The swordsman dashed past the massive mechanism. The golem roared and noticed the lonely warrior. Maizen-san probably screamed in horror. You guys go and stop Abel Jade, Maizen shouted over his shoulder, and a mask of desperate courage froze on his face. He shouted, tears streaming from his eyes, be sure to tell my story and please make me a hero. I am counting on you. Abel looks at the screen with indifferent calm. Shouting is useless. He won't hear me like that. We're in a hurry, so I'll disable that golem. He raised his staff, and the air around seemed to warp and converge before him, refine. A whirlwind of wild power spun, drawing spirits and magical energy from the air. In seconds, it condensed into a dense, shimmering black sphere of pure magical alloy. Hydim Magi Metal, Abel announced, a metal created by combining magical power, spirits, and other components in the air, and its quality depends on who created it. He raised his voice, mockingly teasing the mechanical beast. Hey, scrapdog, over here. The golem sharply turned its head, and its burning eyes fixed on the new threat. As soon as it lunged forward, Maizen shouted, Maizen, step away from the golem. With a simple flick of his wand, Abel threw the sphere. It shot forward like a cannonball, a silent black spot of destruction. The projectile struck the side of the golem with unprecedented force. There was no explosion, only a devastating blow that shattered his armored torso. The strike with the sphere passed through, destroying the head and the core of the golem with a cascade of crushed stone and metal. The construct's movement carried its now headless body several steps forward, then it crashed to the ground with a rumble and shattered into fragments. It slid and stopped, a pile of lifeless scrap. Maizen watched, not believing his eyes. Wonderful, it seems it stopped working. But the projectile's path was not over yet. The sphere of Magi Metal, barely slowing down, struck one of the colossal supporting columns of the hall and bit deeply into the ancient stone. Cracks like cobwebs spread across the surface of the pillar. Abel clicked his tongue irritably. After this, the local lord won't make me pay for these damages, right? We'll blame it all on Abel Hyde. He smiled wryly. All right, at least that can be forgiven, I think. In fact, they should be glad this is the only damage we caused. Because suddenly, the entire chamber began to tremble violently. The damaged pillar creaked, as if it was about to fall at any moment. Maizen raised his eyes in horror. The ceiling began to crumble. This is really bad. Shouldn't we run out of here, in this situation? Memory surfaced in Abel's mind, his own inner thoughts. If we do nothing, Abel will just hide, and it would be a pity to lose someone who knows so much. Because of one missed thing, I have no descendants to whom I could entrust my life's purpose. The former I thought like this and even said, I expect great things from you, Abel. And also after what he did, Abel Hyde won't be able to just return to the city. Execution definitely awaits him. The decision was made. He returned to Mason, leaving behind a strewn investigative group. He knelt down and whispered, let's run quickly, climb onto my back. Mason was puzzled. He would rather die in these ruins, which he had guarded all these years, than be executed in that town. Abel calmly pointed to their former enemy. If I repair the beastly model of the golem, I can activate it. We will escape riding it. He raised his wand again. Oh, Heidi, Meggy Metal changes shape. Black sphere instantly detached from the pillar, melted into liquid, and flowed back into the golem. A flash of light sealed the damage. The golem was immediately fully restored. As they boarded, Abel began a technical lecture. I would rather not repair or simplify the control device, and the magical energy consumption of this golem was not great from the start. Is it because of the gap in abilities between eras? Maybe, but because of the elven nature. His companions interrupted him. Understood, we'll listen later. Mounting the new steed, they broke free from the collapsing ruins, barely in time, leaving Abel Hyde to his fate, and Maizen sighed with relief. Hea, I'm so glad we managed to get out in time, and what exactly was that divine arrow after all? As they walked through the devastated area, Maya saw something in Abel's hand, and with a voice trembling with curiosity, asked, Abel, what is that? He raised a small crystal shard, a piece of the wall from inside the ruins, which I picked up before we escaped. He examined the ore closely. It was very strange. Probably the elves made it by alchemy, but he directed some magic into the shard, and to everyone's surprise, the shard lifted from his palm and began to hover. It seems it has the property to change buoyancy if the right magic wave is introduced. Everything came together in his mind with terrible clarity. Abel Hyde said that 2,000 years ago elves who descended to Earth built this fortress to reclaim the celestial country, but then why did they build it so far from the celestial country and in such an inaccessible place? His eyes widened as he stared at the floating stone. An impossible answer that could overturn the whole world reached him. It can't be. Suddenly you might have shouted, wildly pointing after them, Abel, look. Abel turned sharply, his face distorted with pure shock at the sight before him. A cart pulled by a golem clattered across the harsh plains, carrying Abel and his companions ever forward. Somewhere far away, in the very heart of the flying fortress, the elf lord Abelahide smiled with eerie satisfaction. Finally, he whispered into the wind, the time for Zesham's rebirth has come. His gaze fell on the distant battlefield, where Abel had just fought. It seemed he managed to defeat the golem model beast, only at great cost. He imagined a young wizard exhausted and powerless, to still fight and cast spells after controlling so many golems. It's simply impossible. I'm sure it drained him. Abiela clenched his fist, and a dark mark shone on the back of his hand. He smiled disdainfully, for no one who is not an elf can defeat Zesham's weapon. He approached the edge of the magnificent balcony, the world spread out below him. I will start by shooting God's arrow into the city of Lamarn. He imagined the destruction, the city turned into a burning field by a single divine shot. It is extremely important for me to arrange a grand performance to show what power I have. His voice dripped with poison. Just wait, Sky Country Alpham, this time I will trample you into the ground. Suddenly a thunderous strike shook the very foundations of his fortress. He shouted and, stumbling, fell back when a huge crack ran along the defensive barrier of the fortress. The barrier cracked. Where could an attack of such power have come from? A few miles away, Abel's squad froze, holding their breath, watching the wounded Sky Fortress in the distance. How did you throw that piece of metal so far? One of his comrades asked, but Abel was silent. His eyes were fixed on the target. And then, to their shock, the shimmering crack in the barrier began to heal itself. The crack in the barrier was patched. Abelide quietly, triumphantly chuckled, watching them through the divination device. The skill of repairing machines, he boasted mockingly. You won't break this barrier without interrupting its magical power supply. You need to destroy all the nodes of the barrier surrounding the fortress. Maya clenched her teeth in irritation, although the attack hit. So attacking him is pointless. This barrier regenerates on its own, another comrade guessed. But Abel's attention did not waver. He simply aimed the stick, and his mind was sharp as a razor and precise like a calculator. All right, he said calmly. Judging by what I just saw, the barrier takes about 15 seconds to fully recover. Abel Hyde disdainfully watched the futile attempts of the boys, who would have thought he would hold me back like this. Well, it's good that he is finally retreating. He snorted contemptuously. Futile attempts. He seems unable to surrender and relies only on brute force. His arrogance was suddenly cut off by a harsh, deafening blow. And another, what now? A hail of projectiles struck his shield faster than it could regenerate. Abel's strategy was brutally simple and stunningly brilliant. If one attack doesn't work, just attack continuously, at such a speed that regeneration can't keep up. Bahites held his breath in horror, watching the boy who orchestrated the fall of his fortress. Damn you, Abel! I took him thinking he would be a useful ally, but he turned out to be a plague for my plans. It dawned on him with horror. This is the power of a war clan, those called gods of death on the battlefield. His face twisted with rage. I will never forgive this. With a roar, he struck the control panel with his hand and activated the armament. From all the hidden ports of the fortress, dozens of huge cannons suddenly emerged. Panic exploded in the golem's cart. Yes, it seems a bunch of cannons spilled out. What should we do, Abel? Abel simply raised his wand, Hadim Magi Metal. A new wave of dense metal spheres appeared and rushed forward, intercepting the fortress's cannonballs with devastating force. O Magi Metal, created by my magic, cannot lose to those stone weapons it still strikes, but it always solves this with brute force. Does it even have other ways to solve problems? Abel's thoughts were somewhere on a higher plane. If he released this on the city, it would be a great disaster. Soon, I will be able to press him and squeeze out answers. The final deafening roar, and the heavenly fortress's barrier shattered into pieces. No Eblide stammered, watching his impregnable defense crumble the fortress that had not known a single scratch for 2,000 years, the work of my life, the hope of Zeshem. Rage and despair consumed him. Who could have imagined that right here, I would have to use the weapon created to bring the heavenly country down to earth? He poured every last drop of his strength into the fortress's core and shouted one command, God's arrow. At the top of the fortress, a colossal crystal ignited and began to crack, absorbing an impossible amount of energy. As if the very air was screaming. Maya's voice trembled. It was probably the sound of the spirit's energy running out. Usually it is so quiet that people do not hear it, but now so many heavenly spirits are being taken, so this weapon needs an incredible amount of magical power. She froze in horror. This is just a guess, but from that lump of magical energy in the crystal, probably a laser will shoot out. Maya, running would be a better decision, right? Oh yes, Abel replied in a strangely calm voice. I'll try. He extended his staff to the puzzled Maya. Here, you don't use it, do you? The staff only helps me combine spells, it does not affect my power. He raised his bare hands to the sky. Delicate magical circles blossomed in the air, more complex than anything they had ever seen. He called out, "Oh, fire," and the circles merged into the shape of a sphere. From his half-ruined fortress, Abel laughed like a madman. Cuckoo, is this your end? Mage Marina, disappear. Abel ignored him, fully focused on the spell forming between his palms. He compressed a fiery ball, layered another layer on it, and compressed again. In his hands pulsed a tiny ball of pure, condensed energy. Theoretically, it could destroy anything. I called it Abel Ball. He clearly remembered the moment of discovery, that accidental theory he came across while recovering his strength, and never thought he would have to test it so soon. His gaze fixed on the target. I'm coming, a blaint. He thrust his hands forward, releasing a dazzling beam of pure destruction. The attack crashed into Abel Hyde, not even letting him scream. A powerful bullet pierced the Lord of the Elves, tore through the fortress itself, and struck directly into the fully charged arrow of God. For just a moment, the two mightiest weapons clashed in a struggle for dominance. Abel Hyde's face froze in agony. He watched as his last weapon was consumed. The giant crystal of the arrow of God cracked, then exploded under the relentless power of Abel's spell. The very sky plunged into a silent, blinding white light. In the heart of the bustling city, on a cafe balcony, Abel and Lilith savored a rare moment of peace. Lilith, biting off a large piece of food, looked anxiously at Abel and asked, "Are you really okay with this?" Her words were somewhat muffled. Leaving Maison-san a report on the destruction of the magical creature. Abel leaned back like the embodiment of calm. Well, I didn't do anything special while hunting goblins, he replied indifferently. Because the griffin and the ruin themselves simply dissolved into the air, there was almost nothing to tell. I will focus on leveling up only after I set a clear goal for myself. Lilith recalled the true chaos and incredible power of the arrow of God that had fallen upon them. She remembered Abel's desperate scream when he unleashed his power to resist the divine attack. With just one word, wind, he summoned a vortex of power, not to destroy it, but to gently bring the mad elf Abelhide back from the insane path and save him from inevitable death. She recalled how Abel stood over the fallen elf, and there was no expression on his face. Why did you do that? Abelgade asked in surprise, stunned by this act of mercy. I'll let the city decide what to do next, Abel said, putting an end to Abelgade's desire to conquer the world. This aspiration would now remain a secret. When Lilith tried to explain this to the guildmaster, only a tangled mess of excited sounds flew from her lips, a ruin of FSHSH and Ba. Then Abel simply whooshed took control of the golem, and it thundered with blinding light bam. The guild officials stared at her, completely baffled. One of them begged anyone, to translate her agitated testimony. The guild master pinched the bridge of his nose, irritated. Ha. He cast a malicious glance at Abel. No mage could accomplish all this alone. Are you just greedy for achievements? That's why I can't stand peasants. At the cafe, Abel's side was silent. He knew, even if he told them the whole truth, it would only create new problems. So from a strategic point of view, it was much simpler to let them believe their own version. The results justified it. It was then that he overheard a conversation at the neighboring table. Hey, did you hear about this? Heard about that barrier ruin? They say it exploded. Supposedly one of the elves who served the lord of these lands tried to capture it, and it backfired on him. Lilith's eyes widened in shock. That man escaped a death sentence, huh? And the elf is now behind bars. The adventure continued. In any case, now that the ruin is gone, we can do nothing. Abel was silent, recalling their last conversation. The elf revealed that Abel was the first human who taught him magic, a memory Abelhade had kept since leaving the village. I wouldn't want to kill him with my own hands, Abelhade admitted. I sincerely wish you the best of luck, Abeljade. That elf is a fool. Another man at the table inserted a contemptuous remark. They followed their desires and eventually completely destroyed that ruin. What irresponsibility. And I thought elves were a smarter race. Lilith put a finger to her chin. Pie. Death in the official version is now final. The entire incident was blamed on one reckless elf. This version of events fully exonerated Abel, shifting all the blame directly onto Abelhide. Suddenly a familiar voice rang out. Hey guys, over here. It was Mason, waving his hand joyfully. He joined their table, looking completely exhausted. My body aches. I couldn't get out of bed for 2 days. If only I had a potion, he groaned. Is your body okay? Abel asked. Oh really? Lilith added. Mason instantly perked up. I got information about a wanted person, he said. Although I can't go with you, I have other matters, but I'm sure you can handle it. He explained, you see, those two from that party were asking about me then. He told how on the way back, after submitting the report, he was ambushed by former party members. Mason, they exclaimed, we heard you rose to E rank, congratulations. Mason was stunned to see them. What's wrong with you two? They looked embarrassed. Honestly, we've been looking for you all the time. We can't manage exterminating magical beasts at all while you're gone. So please, rejoin our squad again. Come back, leader. Hearing their desperate pleas, Mason lost his resolve. Then nothing can be done, he said, glad to be needed again. I just can't say no, Mason said, finishing the story and shrugging. So who is this supposedly wanted person? He gestured toward the outskirts of the city. Late that night, in a modest meeting hut of the Marin clan, a serious meeting was underway. The chief sat at the head of the table, his face grim. Thank you all for coming. We have problems, but first I must apologize for my mistake. He waved his hand toward a detailed document on the table. Abel really left notes on how to grow incense leaves, but they are impossible to reproduce. This effect can only be created by Abel. Abel's father, Zelrut, slammed his fist on the table. Mumu, that Abel. His face twisted in agony, and just when I thought I could finally establish myself in the village, thanks to my right to the incense leaves. A sudden loud laugh broke the tense silence. It was Norman Carlo, head of the enemy Carlo family. Impossible to reproduce, right? He stood up, shining with triumph. Then I have nothing to do here. If Abel's incense leaves are gone, I have nothing to worry about. The Carlo family's incense leaves will rise again. He contemptuously threw a pouch of coins made from magical ore on the floor. You who look down on me will pay dearly for this, he barked and ran out. The chief watched him go and sighed wearily. My God, what a petty man. Has he ever thought that those who tried Abel's incense won't find it so easy? He stopped, his gaze hardened, but this really plays into the Carlo family's hands. He turned to the rest of the clan members, his voice quiet and deliberate. For now, let's slowly adjust the mix, blend some of Abel's fragrant leaves into the other products before distributing them. He leaned forward, and the weight of their situation hit him when we managed to introduce the magical ore coin system. Abel's incense leaves did their job, and this should give us a chance to break free from the incense decline. Although it doesn't cause such dependence to affect the user's daily life, it's a great opportunity for it to disappear. His eyes narrowed. If this leaks out, a rebellion might ignite. The real conversation will continue in secret. When the chief stepped out of the hut, he froze. A faint pulse of magic pierced the air. He looked around but saw nothing. All skilled magicians of the village should now be in this hut, he thought, except Abel. Perhaps it was only my imagination, right? In the distance, unnoticed, a ceramic mug silently floated across the night sky. The mug gently stopped against the window pane, softly knocking. A small hand opened the window and took the mug. In the room surrounded by tall stacks of books, Abel's sister fell silent and listened as the mug whispered the secret strategy of the family. Welcome back, she whispered. For now, mix some of Abel's incense leaves with other ingredients before distributing. Mumu, you Abel I. She pressed herself to the window and gazed into the darkness. Why do the village elder and father care so little about Nia-sama? Her voice trembled with sincere anxiety. I am sure Nia-sama is now scared and lonely in the middle of unfamiliar land. Suddenly a spark of light glittered in her eyes, a brilliant and sharp idea cut through her anxiety. Her naive anxiety turned into something completely different, a look of deep determination. Just wait, Nia-sama. I am sure the village elder will also seriously start searching for Nia-sama. A confident, almost predatory smile played on her face. Your little sister will definitely come to take you. She pressed the glowing tome to her chest, a quiet promise of the power she will use to find her brother. On the southern outskirts of the kingdom of Dinlart, the ancient stones of the main temple Kudal howled as the Ordi monastery was torn apart by a terrible explosion. A dark figure stands amid the ruins, its silhouette outlined against the approaching twilight, holding a staff dimly glowing with exhausted energy, and a voice is heard praising him for breaking the seal. The secluded halls inside have become a tomb. Their former inhabitants lie motionless on the cold stone floor. From the shattered sanctuary emerges a mighty figure, the supreme demoness, her body shrouded in shadows and ancient power. It has been several hundred years since I last saw the outside world, she reflects, her voice echoing with the weight of centuries, while the man in the cloak bows his head, acknowledging her freedom. You are the great demon of knowledge and destruction, Zalman-sama, he said reverently. Zalman's sharp gaze slid across the horizon. It seems this spirit is near, she noted, and a barely predatory smile played on her lips. The last time I saw him, he was only a mid-rank spirit. He has grown. She turned to her subordinate. Her order was unequivocal. Very well, Magus, head south from here, to Lamarn. After a long journey, Abel and Maya finally rest by a quiet stream, the water cooling their tired feet. At last their travels bring them to the territory of Dinlaru, where they arrive at the western branch of the Lamar Support Center and Adventurers. Abel approaches the counter and places proof of his conquest on it. The guild receptionist's eyes widen in shock. This is. Her exclamation swept through the crowded guild hall in disbelief. Head-eating demon, seriously, whispered the adventurers, stunned, for this demon had skin so tough it broke the swords of many adventurers, and someone added, no, it can't be, that guy really did it. Abel and Maya found themselves under dozens of scrutinizing gazes. Maya seemed to enjoy the attention, whispering to Abel and quietly giggling as if we had somehow become famous, but the whispers were filled with skepticism. I am sure it's exaggerated. An experienced adventurer snorted. I bet that ear is from another beast, and he just painted his skin to pass it off as real. Abel felt the weight of their stares and immediately understood they held envy and suspicion, no admiration or respect. The flustered receptionist leaned forward and whispered, excuse me, but the rank check will take some time after all. This is the first time we are dealing with such a rare material. Could you speak more quietly? His inner strength grew to noticeable proportions, exactly what he wanted to avoid. Just imagine that he stands out so badly. He had heard that upon reaching rank C, there is a high chance that some noble would want to find him, and that would complicate matters considerably. While ordinary adventurers chased higher ranks to make a name for themselves, Abel had completely different goals. He just wanted to accumulate money without burdening himself with fame or titles. Suddenly, a stern voice broke through the whisper. You said that guy defeated the demon that devours heads. Above them loomed a mountain of a man clad in heavy armor. You, brat, lying is bad, you know. The crowd instantly recognizes him, Gaston Garand. Guild representative steps forward, his face full of fatigue. Stop, we already have a bunch of complaints about your bad behavior if you keep causing problems for adventurers. I'm just trying to help bring order with those bad adventurers, you understand. Abel meets the ruffian's gaze without blinking. You're right, sometimes bad adventurers try to cheat to raise their rank. Shut up, Gaston bellows. It's because of people like you that true masters can't take their rightful place, and it's our business to judge, not yours. He accusatorily points a finger at Abel. This shows that you have problems with judgment. If the danger level of the demon that devours heads is higher than rank C, then this seemingly weak boy shouldn't have defeated it. By the way, what is your rank? Gaston's henchmen proudly puff out their chests. Listen and be amazed. This great Gaston-san is a D-rank adventurer. After all, he is a veteran among veterans. He has been a D-rank adventurer for the last 10 years. Abel's mind instantly absorbs the information, a plan already forming in his head. He is just a thug with a trained body, but lacks the necessary skill to serve the nobility. I can use him. He raises his eyes to that man and asks, Gaston-san, right? It will be bad if we make a fuss, so let's talk alone in the back alley. Maya looks at him anxiously and says, Abel, He gives her a reassuring look and replies, "It's okay, just wait here a bit." In the lonely alley, Gaston crossed his arms and said, "You have more courage than I thought, I admit that." He cracks his fingers, a wild smile spreads across his face. "You're ready to do it, right? Speak." Abe remains completely calm. His mind is several steps ahead of events. "The truth is, I'm not the one who hunted that demon. If I smash him to pieces here, it will only cause envy among other hunters, and I don't want to deal with that later." He starts his carefully planned story. "So you admit it, huh? Actually, I only exchanged this for money because I was asked to buy a certain person who was stripped of an adventure or status, you understand." He leaned in, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "Although I can't say his name, he is a very dangerous person, so if you tell anyone otherwise, he will even kill you." Abel does not look away from Gaston's face, catching the slightest reaction and mentally telling himself, "Probably this lie is too obvious, huh?" Dustin burst out laughing. "Phew, I knew it from the very beginning, you know." Abel hides his relief. "So since it's like that, give me the money," demands Gaston. Abel shakes his head. "I also need money to live, so I can't give you anything, but I have a proposal." He lays out his proposal. "Next time that guy asks me again to exchange the material, why don't you take that job for me?" Gaston froze, stunned. "What, so you're saying I can take the credit?" Abel adds, "At first I liked how it raised my rating, but for a weak person like me, doing something like that looks strange." "Fine, I'll still take the money you give me, but it would really help if you did it for me. If someone who looks strong and cool does it, it won't look strange." They will give him a bright, innocent smile. "I don't think that's bad advice for both of us, right?" "Yes." In the guild hall, Gaston's supporters quietly chuckle among themselves. "Cuckoo, I bet that guy is getting a good beating right now." One of them quietly sat down next to the worried Maya and whispered, "Missy, you are really very capable and strong, but in this city there is no one who could come back unscathed after a fight with Gaston, you understand? If you ask, I don't mind helping." Just then the door opened and Gaston entered. His men shouted, "Oh, elder brother. Have you already dealt with that brat?" Out of nowhere, Gaston's fist hits his subordinate's jaw, and he flies back. "Ya man, brother, why did you do that?" His partner stammers in shock. Gaston roars, righteous anger in his voice. "Insulting another traveler's companion is a disgrace." Abel appeared behind him. "Sorry to keep you waiting. Now it is Gaston's people who receive reproaches. Aren't you ashamed to constantly grumble about others' achievements?" He makes clear gestures for Maya to follow him. "Let's go, I'll tell you later." As they walk away, he looks back at the hooligans and whispers, "You guys are rotten, but since you started it yourselves, I'll have to fix you myself." Later in the tavern, Maya listened attentively as Abel told what had happened. He counts a heavy pouch of coins. "With this money, we can continue hunting monsters and not worry about anything. We'll use it for equipment for our next hunt." Maya stared at that amount, not hiding her shock. "Abel, why do you need so much money?" "Why are you asking?" Abel replied succinctly. "Of course, it's for daily expenses, and I still need to pay back the money I borrowed from you." Maya's face fell. "Hey Dai, do you really want to abandon Maya so badly?" She begins to panic. Is it because Maya's good for nothing? Maya will also do everything possible to help carry the luggage. Abel raises his hands in a calming gesture. "Why calm down? I don't mean anything like that at all." He looks at her, a thoughtful expression on his face. What exactly happened in her hometown that made her so inclined to think she would be abandoned? "I'm not so shameless as to not repay debts," he explains gently. "Besides, there are a bunch of other things I want to do, so we need to first get everything we need." He leaned forward, his eyes burning with ambition. "I want to create magical devices, chimeras and golems more precisely. I want to try to make a mobile phone." He explains this idea, recalling facts from his past life. "I once read about a type of monster that can communicate over distances using magic. In short, their magic works like an electromagnetic wave. He imagines the revolution this will cause. If I can create a mobile phone in this world, it will definitely become popular." Maya is still confused, and Abel is lost in his vision of the future. A sharp knock on their door pulls him out of his thoughts. Here is Mason smiling in the doorway. "Hey, hi, yo, Mason, you seem to be doing well," Abel says, greeting him. "Aha, thank you for telling us about it," says Mason, his face becoming serious. "I heard you defeated the demon that devours heads, you know. By the way, Abel, did you notice anything strange in the forest?" Maya chimes in. "Probably that demon is eating them, something like the fish we found headless, scattered along the river, but I didn't notice anything else strange." "Did something happen?" asks Abel, and Mason's voice becomes quieter. "We actually went in the opposite direction from you. When the order came, it said to send back all adventurers below BRANK, you understand. I'm sure this order will soon reach the support center as well." Abel's senses sharpened. The reason for the order was grim. It seems the squad sent by the Lord fell into an ambush. Deep in the dark forest, an ominous wind rustles through the trees. A giant twisted tree stands like a silent monument to a brutal battle. Around its roots, the ground is torn and stained, proof of a fierce struggle that ended in silence. Deep in the shaded forest, Maya's voice cut through the suffocating silence. Ebel, are you really okay? Abel clenches his teeth, thoughts racing. He recalls Maizen's stern warning. This forest is forbidden for all below B rank. The griffin they defeated was B rank and a formidable opponent, but this place evokes even greater terror. They say the expedition team was attacked by a living tree, added Maya, her eyes scanning the endless canopy. If that's true, it must be somewhere among all these trees, right? Abel forced a confident smile and brushed off her anxiety, so everything will be fine. But in the next moment, he is overwhelmed by a cold realization. All his confidence shatters. As he suspected, it is too dangerous to explore this area alone. He froze in place and Maya, startled by his sudden stop, exclaimed, what happened, Abel?" Seizing the chance to stop a bit and regroup, Abel pretended to be in pain. He clutched his leg and convincingly acted out suffering, forcing a tactical pause and gaining a few precious seconds to think. They were resting near a small, secluded waterfall, and Maya's anxiety was evident in her voice. "Are you really okay?" she asked, and Abel quietly exhaled, finally able to rest and calmly assess the situation. Suddenly his eyes widened with inspiration. Aha, exactly. He raised his wand. "My wand will react if strange magic is nearby, but I can't keep my hand raised while walking." A brilliant, simple solution arose. He aimed the wand at the backpack and spoke one command. The world tree totem materialized before them. Maya asked how much magic its support would consume, but Abel brushed off her fears. "Don't worry, my magic has never truly run out. Honestly, I should have done this earlier." The totem hovered ahead like a magical alarm signal, and they moved forward. Abel mentally pondered the principles of his abilities. Teleportation was a high-level art, but it had limits. He couldn't transport the world tree totem over long distances because of the enormous magical power within it. His magic circle simply couldn't reach. The same limit forced him to prepare the teleportation circle himself when he fled from his father. Maya panicked at the very thought. "Please don't. I can at least teleport back to the tavern, but then I'll leave you here." But Abel calmly assured her he wasn't going to abandon her. A confident smile played on his lips. He truly passionately wanted to find that tree monster rumored about. There was a high chance it was full of magical power, and I want to make a totem from it. Maya froze in horror. A totem from a tree that attacks people, and Abel was already spinning plans. "I made a universal totem from the world tree," he explained, and ambition burned in his eyes. "So next I want to try creating a battle totem." As they walked, Maya noticed a strange flower off the path. How enchantingly beautiful it was. Abel recognizes her instantly. "If I am not mistaken, this is a papalga flower. Usually its petals are red." He leans in, and his studying gaze sharpens. "Once I read that its color can change depending on the magical energy around, which means..." He had not yet finished speaking when his totem suddenly began to vibrate fiercely. Before them appears a swirling vortex of pure energy, and a terrifying voice sounds not in their ears, but directly in their heads. "Bow to me as a god, or you will die." Maya recoiled in fear, while Abel remained calm, carefully analyzing this phenomenon. It was not an ordinary voice. It came straight into our heads. In a blurred rush of movement, a thick, whip-like tentacle cut through the air where they had stood just a moment before. A mighty vine crashes into the world tree totem and hurls it into the thicket. The source is revealed here, not some magical creature, but a tree, as if possessed by a demon. From the bark of the ancient tree emerges a grotesquely twisted face, and its eyes blaze with malice. The demon is a dangerous cluster of spirits. "It looks like a sinister totem," Maya whispers in horror. The monster roars, its voice trembles throughout the forest. "How dare you compare me to just a statue?" A root shoots out, and Abel pushes me aside at the last moment. He turns to the monster, a defiant smile on his face. "Just a statue, huh? Those are bold words. I will show you the power of my masterpiece." His totem instantly flashes into the clearing and rushes again into battle with the enemy. The possessed tree tears out a storm of roots, but the totem dodges every strike with fluid, impossible grace. Abel follows the pattern, his mind a cold, calculating machine. He's about to make a deceptive move, but the tree lunged and, as expected, the totem rolled under the attack, hitting the monster's torso with its full weight. "Unfortunately," Abel explains loudly, "I installed only a simple combat protocol in my world tree totem, so psychological warfare doesn't affect it." The tree howls with rage and pain, while the totem relentlessly and soullessly continues its attack. Only a simple statue would methodically dismantle it. What are you talking about?" Me asks, puzzled by his calm. "My world tree totem is a generalist, so it doesn't have that much firepower," he clarifies and briefly adds, "We won't win if we just keep dodging right." Let his eyes widen. "No, I just think this will work best against it." Abel has already analyzed everything. These roots move too slowly for a tree with such magical power. He has already uncovered her strategy in detail. Does she divide her magical power among each root? Having several roots is really cool if I'm going to imitate her. So what can I do to optimize this? Enough games, demonic tree unleashes all its power. Get ready, you're going to be blown away. A powerful burst of energy exploded, caught the totem, and threw it high into the air. It falls to the ground with a crash and shatters into pieces. The tree boasts, its voice ringing with pride. Did you see that? My power is much greater than that simple totem. Abel's face is in shadow, his expression unreadable. He has already learned everything he needed. I never thought it could use another type of attack besides physical. I can still improve my world tree totem a bit. He raises his wand. Call my totem here. The demon could not believe his eyes. The broken fragments rose into the air and flew back to Abel, reassembling into one whole right in his hand. And now he had a complete plan for victory. Now that I have my totem plan, he says, raising his gaze with fearful determination, I guess I'll stop playing with wooden mechs here. How dare you? I am a god. He points out, capable, wand, wind. A focused cyclone of magic engulfs the tree demon. Rest in peace. The magic intensifies. The cleansing whirl tears apart the clustered spirits. When the magic subsided, the demonic presence dissolved, leaving only a withering, powerless tree in its place. What did you do, Abel? Maya asks, stunned. I just dispersed the spirits and returned them to their original forms, he says as if nothing happened. My clan are real pros at these things, you see. He points to the base of the tree, where the roots now pulse with gentle magical light. This is where everything is decided. The true value of this tree is in its roots, filled with magical power. Abel's mind instantly begins to sift through materials. First of all, it is necessary to slow down their destruction. Oh, magical conductivity is quite high. It can even be used for the piano. I can adjust the pitch, trim the root, and apply it elsewhere. Next, ball joint. It seems we are here for a long time, so I set up camp. After a period of intense work, Abel triumphantly shows his newest creation. I made this. Can you take a look? Battle totem. I will name it Ashura 5000. He freezes in a dramatic pose, commanding the totem to dance. The new totem, a complex structure with numerous limbs, moves with stunning precision. Look at this craftsmanship. Isn't it a marvel? Maya notices how large it is. And most importantly, it confirms, like the world tree totem, I can teleport using this guy. His work is done. He buries the last remnants of the demon-possessed tree, the request fulfilled. Let's return to the tavern and rest well. Now I'm hungry, he says. But in his mind, the next stage of his grand plan was already jumping. He needed to make a mobile phone, and for that he would have to gather more money. Somewhere far away, under the boundless starry sky, a woman with dark wings and piercing eyes suddenly looked up. What happened, master? Asked the man nearby. It seemed to me that my old friend teleported somewhere, because suddenly his presence was not felt, but... She pondered, and for a moment, embarrassment flashed in her eyes. I still somehow feel her magical power. I guess it's just my mistake, right? The man shifted her attention. Are we heading to Lammer now? A cruel smile blooms on her face. Of course, I am eagerly awaiting this. The changes we will bring to this world. Intoxicated by peace, they recede, leaving behind a chilling aura. In the neighboring village, the man froze. He clearly felt that disaster was approaching. In a moment, the city echoed with screams. The winged woman and her master soar above the chaos they unleashed, their dark figures blocking the moon, and evil creeps closer and closer. The group was making their way through the city streets. They were heading to the western branch of the Lammer Support Center and Adventurers. Inside, a gloomy mood prevailed. The traveler sighed heavily from fatigue. The burden of his misfortune weighed him down. His companion was no less depressed. If you say so, then what do you propose? What is our plan? After all, we don't know anything else and we have no connections. The other just silently collapsed from helplessness, and I decided, all right, I'll take this opportunity and quit being an adventurer. Depressing despair stood in the guild. After Abel eliminated the threat in the forest, the city banned going there, cutting off the main source of income for low-level adventurers who lived off the forest. He tapped his fingers on his head, counting how his money was melting away. We still have a few loans to pay off for our weapons. Forget about my housing budget. It seems I won't even have enough money to eat tomorrow. Just then a clear voice pierced the darkness. Everyone rejoice, announced Abel, standing next to Maya and Mason. In fact, Gaston cleared the monster lair in the northern forest, so I'm sure the ban will be lifted soon. One of the desperate adventurers jumped to his feet. In fury, that only escalated the situation further. Stop with this nonsense already. Don't talk like that when we're so tight on money. You kid, I'm telling you the truth. But before the argument could flare up, a heavy presence filled the room. Another adventurer was heading to the entrance. Look there. The doors swung open, and Gaston entered with wide strides, wearing a grim and determined expression. On his back was a huge bundle of thick dark roots, and the skeptical adventurer's eyes widened. That's a bundle. Are those roots? Gaston went straight to the counter and slammed the proof so hard the whole hall trembled, and the guild official stared at the reward, his eyes wide with disbelief. This. He couldn't believe his eyes. Are you serious? No doubt, this was the very same telepathic black path that could summon powerful winds from the monster for which we sent a team to destroy. A wave of whispers passed through the crowd of adventurers. Gaston really did it, despite being stuck in D-rank for years. Someone added, I knew it, always thought he would break through one day. The guild representative, gathering his courage, addressed the new hero. Gaston Dono, sorry to keep you waiting. This needs to be investigated in a special way. Gaston, perfectly playing the role Abel prepared for him, waved his hand. I don't remember the details about those weak monsters I defeated. The crowd erupted with admiration. Amazing, this is a true pro. Gaston, you are our hero, shouted one traveler. With this we can go back to the forest again, but here an employee quickly intervened. All right, and just briefly please come with me to the special counter. As Gaston was led away, the guild hall echoed with his name. Adventurers shouted in chorus, Gaston, Gaston. Watching from a quiet corner, Abel barely smiled. What a fuss they made. I'm glad he took my place there, and thanks to that everything was resolved without attracting people's attention. Maya nodded, though she looked less confident, just hoping nothing troublesome happens in the future. Suddenly Abel sharply raised his head. What is that? It's somehow noisy outside. The guild doors suddenly swung open again. This time it was a frightened resident. Someone, help us. The man stumbled and fell inside, his face pale with fear. Something terrible is attacking us. Panic is starting to spread. Someone please do something. You are adventurers, right? Instantly all eyes fell on their newly minted champion, just when I thought we had defeated that forest monster, and then another appeared instantly in its place. Exactly. Gaston, you will do something right. After all, you defeated that B-rank monster, so you have to handle this one too. The color vanished from Gaston's face. The immense pressure of their expectations crashed down on him. Everyone is counting on me. Fire ignited in his eyes. I wanted to become a hero. He clenched his fists and turned to the other adventurers. Yes, leave this to me. Let's go for Gaston's sand. Let's show them the power of adventurers. With a roar, he led the attack, running out of the guild. Abel watched them go, his face frozen in pure shock. That guy, and what about the reward? Before he could realize the collapse of his plan, Mason broke through the crowd. There you are. Come with me, Abel. Mason, Tio, and Lisa. Then he grabbed Abel's hand and pulled him into the chaos. Tio and Lisa turned into this petrification from urine. Outside stood two perfectly gray statues, where just a moment ago his friends had been. Abel's head spun. He instantly processed the new information petrification magic, so the one going mad in the city is not a beast, but a mage, right? He sharply turned to Mason, his voice sharp and focused. Run, he will turn you to stone. Mason grabbed Abel's hand again, his voice filled with despair. Let's go, Abel. It seems the villain is there. When it comes to magic, I can't rely on anyone more than you. They raced through the panic-stricken streets. They turned the corner and slammed on the brakes. A terrible scene unfolded before them. The entire street turned into a gallery of stone figures, the townspeople frozen in poses of horror. Among them was the hero adventurer Gaston was already frozen, and the other adventurers from the support center as well. On the neighboring roof, a mage in a dark cloak quietly chuckled. Cuckoo, those foolish brats. He looked down at Abel's company, right there. He smiled maliciously, holding a sinister staff. Just think they came here themselves to become stone. Damn them. A beam of dark energy shot from the tip of the staff. Abel instantly reacted, throwing his hand forward. The dark mage's eyes widened in surprise. You are a mage, right? His surprise quickly turned into sadistic delight. Cuckoo, it seems I will be able to enjoy this. I will let you feel the great power of the supreme demon Zalamania-sama. Abel's eyes narrowed. The sorcerer cast another spell. Fire, he thundered, and a blazing projectile flew from his hands. Mason here. Mason, guided only by instinct, pushed the petrified statue of Gaston forward to intercept the fireball. The magic exploded against the stone figure. Maya froze in horror. Wait, this stone figure was originally a person. Are you sure we can use it as a shield? Mason, sweating, replied. There won't be problems as long as he remains turned to stone. But he grimaced. If it loses its form when it returns, it will turn into something terrible, and I don't even want to imagine that. Abel calmly ignored their quarrels. His mind was already breaking the enemy down into parts. That man's staff could shoot dangerous magic. He was still saying something about demons. He continued the analysis, his face calm, looking at the petrification curse magic he had used earlier. It seemed it was not a complicated spell. He quickly turned to his comrades. I think the petrification will disappear if we do enough damage to the one who cast it. Hope flared again in Mason. Then everyone will become normal again if we manage to hit that guy, right? If possible, I also want to grab that cane, added Abel Cowley, because it looks like it's not an ordinary magical tool. All right, then I understand. Mason and Maya immediately volunteered. I will be the decoy and distract him. You go and defeat that guy, said Mason. Maya added, Me too, I will at least run around and create confusion, and Abel nodded once. You are right, that will be the safest way to resolve this. The plan is ready. Two decoys dashed forward. Go, the sorcerer watched them run. A cruel smile froze on his face. Cuckoo, are you too scared to move? When Mezan and Maya were running away, he laughed mockingly. Ha, do you really think you can escape from me? He raised his staff to overthrow them. Idiot, behind you, Magus, he froze. Abel was already there. His hand was outstretched. Wind. Around the dark mage, a fierce whirlwind of mistakes broke out and completely surrounded him. He screamed when the squall attacked him and knocked him off his feet. Powerful winds tear the demonic cane from his hands. The artifact clattered uselessly against the cobblestones below. The sorcerer was sharply thrown out of the tornado, spun in the air, and crashed with a roar right onto the street. Abel stood over the fallen enemy with an impassive face, so if he fully relied on that staff, now he would be powerless. But the mage got up, groaning in pain. Ha, I'd eat you, Abel said with detached curiosity. Wow, I didn't think you'd survive such a fall. Your body is too strong, you know. The mage cast a look full of pure hatred. You, as a mage, must understand what I feel, right? He burst into a tirade, his voice spitting venom. This time is so rotten. Those people from that village drove me out just because I kept studying magic. His face twisted into a mask of madness. Don't you think so? The only mistake is this world, drunk on peace, looking down on magic. He spread his arms wide like a prophet of chaos. I want the whole world to know this, about the power of magic and the stunning strength of demons. That is why I broke the seal that imprisoned the very Zalamania. Abel listened, and a spark of understanding flashed in his eyes for some reason. It seemed to him that he had heard something similar very recently. He remembered the elven princess, and that boy both knew how to hide, but something was twisted in them because no one understood them. He considered himself lucky. As unfortunate as it was, he reincarnated into a world where magic is not respected. But unlike others, he had a chief master of the tribe in Yamasen from his previous life, if not for these wonderful people nearby. Mason shouted from the side, Abel, don't listen to that guy. Abel's attention returned to the present moment. I know. The fallen mage saw his chance. While Abel was distracted, he rushed to the fallen staff. That fool, thought Abel. Well, better check the staff before removing the petrification spell. But as soon as the mage's fingers touched the sphere, it exploded with a blinding, ominous glow, and a winged silhouette burst from the artifact. Its power was immense and terrible. Finally, the ancient demon Zalamania appeared before Abel. From a high ledge above the chaos, the winged demon watched the battle below. She turned to another sorceress, her voice dripping with contempt. Zalamania herself, why are you dawdling with this trifle for so long? Abel's eyes narrowed, his gaze fixed on the newcomer. A colossal magical pressure emanated from her, much stronger than that coming from the mage on the ground, and he instantly understood the hierarchy. She was the one pulling the strings. The demon Zalamania gracefully descended onto the street. But does it matter, she thought, a cruel smile playing on her lips. I have nothing else to do anyway, so I'll play with you a little. The voices of Maya, Mason, and Abel sharply tore through the air, sharp and commanding. Someone in the sky, who are you talking to? Mason asked confusedly. Watch that staff, Abel ordered. Don't let her touch it. But Zalamania was already rushing forward, unleashing a stream of dark energy without a word, magic without spells, just as he suspected. Abel reacted with superhuman speed. He raised his hand and shouted, Wall of light, and a transparent barrier of pure energy burst forth before him, absorbing the demon's attack. Zalamania laughed, her voice echoed in the alley. It had been a long time since I last used magic, and it's not bad at all, while his companions could only stand in shock and stare at the blue skin that was so striking. The next moment she vanished and appeared lightning fast right in front of Abel. I wonder how long you'll last, she mocked, and her claws sharply scraped across his barrier. The power of her blows rippled through the street, nearly hitting Maya. Next to him, another dark mage chuckled maliciously, urging his master to tear them to pieces. Abel gritted his teeth. I would do it if I could, he thought, wishing to unleash a powerful blast and end it instantly. But he could not take the risk, not here, with petrified innocent villagers around. A reckless strike would cause irreparable losses, so he had only one choice: to act precisely. Her speed, Maya whispered, her face pale. What are we going to do? But Abel was already thinking 10 moves ahead. If only I could block her movement, and a path to victory flashed before him. What's wrong? Zalamania said mockingly, intensifying the pressure. How long will you stand like that? Let's have some more fun. Summon my totem here, Abel ordered, extending his hand. With a flash of light, the totem appeared. Collided with Zalamania's path, intercepting her attack. She was thrown back, her eyes wide with shock. Wow, a totem, she exclaimed, recognizing its origin, and that feeling from the Marin clan's totem. The totem flew back, but it absorbed the blow completely. If I have to guess, Zulimonia analyzed aloud, it is made from a rather powerful wood, filled with magical energy, so from the bark of the world tree, right? Abel did not let her finish the thought, released a concentrated beam of magic from his staff. The totem surged forward, intercepted another of her attacks, and caused a massive explosion of power that shook the very foundations of the city. When the dust settled, Solomania noticed a gap in the defense and rushed to deliver the final blow. "I caught you," she shouted triumphantly. Suddenly, the totem transformed. Dozens of wooden hands grew from its body, and the demon froze in the air. Before she could react, the hands shot out, wrapped around her, and completely bound her. She was trapped, tightly gripped by the very force she recognized. Maya held the staff high. He aimed his staff at the stone crowning her staff. "Seal that thing here." A powerful vortex of sealing magic burst from the staff. The totem, still containing Solomania, was irresistibly drawn to the light. "Wait, stop, no," she screamed, but it was already too late. With a final flash and it was over. "God, this is exhausting," Abel said, catching his breath. Inside the staff, Solomania's astral form looked around in panic. What was that attack? Why was someone from the Marin clan here? She saw the totem hanging ominously right in front of her. The totem spoke in an ancient, calm voice. "This aura is for my old friend. They suddenly disappeared before we decided to come here, so I thought they decided to move to another place." Abel smiled. His plan had worked perfectly. "Who the hell are you?" Solomania stammered. "Don't tell me you know I'm from the Marin clan, but to just beat my old friend, turn him into a totem, and then seal me alone." Abel simply replied, "So, what should I do with you?" He raised the staff, which now pulsed with immense demonic magical power. A staff with sealed magic inside, he thought. I can come up with many ways to use it. Solomania could only watch, overwhelmed with complete horror. Suddenly, a woman nearby moved. Her stone skin cracked and crumbled, revealing that she was returning to her normal appearance. Ah, the peasants who had turned to stone are returning to normal. Soon everyone will wake up, and the fact that someone is found with the staff of the very mage who attacked the city could have terrible consequences. The staff was incredibly heavy, a burden he could not carry. "I really don't want to let it go, but let's just bury it somewhere." He decided not to do that. There was a better way. With all his strength, he threw the staff across the square. The night guest slowly came to his senses. "Ah, where is the enemy?" At that very moment, the staff fell from the sky and stuck into the cobblestones right in front of him. Around them, the curse receded. People burst with joy, finding their families whole and unharmed. And their eyes fell on Gaston, standing heroically by the staff of the fallen Magath. Conclusion was instant and unanimous. Gaston had defeated him, impressively, as befits a hero. The square erupted with loud cheers of rescue. "Thank you, you are our savior, Gaston." Gaston stood in complete confusion. "What is going on here? I don't remember anything since I came to the square." And then a dangerous, selfish thought took root in his head. Has a superpower awakened in me? And the crowd's screams only grew louder, reinforcing his illusion. Can I look at this and feel both admiration and distrust at the same time? They are already forming a cult. You really don't mind? She asked Abel. Mason was just as stunned. "Abel Kun, what have you done? How is this?" And then Abel simply smiled and, to their surprise, raised his fist in the air, joining the chorus of admiring shouts. "Hip hip hooray, Gaston." And so the legend of Gaston, hero of the kingdom of Dinrat, was born. Fame spread around, built only on pure chance and without any skills, a reputation that would later drag him into all sorts of troubles. But that, of course, is a story for another time. In the sunny canyons of the kingdom of Dinrat, in the city of Asim, stood a magnificent library belonging to the faith of Kujula. May froze in horror, eyes wide open with anxiety. Just imagine, he's trying to resurrect that sinister monster, and I thought from the very beginning that he was a bad person. She was mesmerized looking at the picture in the frame, a terrible creature from another world, radiating colossal power. She instantly threw her hands to her face in shock, and stumbling, stepped back carrying a stack of books. Abel, however, remained completely calm. "The people here are followers of the Yumal faith. This is a new religion, so they think differently." Maya, confused, could only apologize and admit that she did not know. He waved his hand toward the library around them. This place was connected with the faith of Kudal, and unlike most other religions in the kingdom of Dinrad, other faiths were not discriminated against here. The conversation turned to the man whose fame spread throughout the country, Gaston, who was considered a hero, the one who resurrected the ancient demon Solomon and saved entire villages from petrification. Gaston's fame did not stop in Lamarn. It spread like wildfire and finally reached the ears of the king himself. His meteoric rise culminated on the day when Queen Charlotte, the fourth ruler of the kingdom of Dinrad, personally appointed him commander of her personal guard. Abel revealed the cold, calculated truth hidden behind the legend. Gaston was just a name, an unlucky man whom I used to hide my achievements, but now that things had gone so far, I could no longer cover for him, so fortunately, having gathered quite a bit of money, I decided to leave Lamarn before I got into trouble. He heavily placed a pile of books on the research table with a dull thud. I wonder what happened to him next, Abel pondered aloud. I am sure people will quickly realize he has no experience as a soldier. I just hope the Queen doesn't turn her wrath on me because of this disgrace. He paused for a moment, a brief thought crossing his face what will happen to Gaston. Honestly, Gaston is a pretty resilient guy. I just hope he doesn't give up. But the matter was much more complicated than even Abel could imagine. Queen Charlotte desperately wanted to harness Gaston's fame as a political weapon, a tool to strengthen her claims to the throne against her brothers and sisters. So even if Gaston did not have the power worthy of his position, she could not simply get rid of him. And so Gaston, completely unaware of the great political game he had now fallen into, simply relied on his luck, perfect timing, and confidence, which only reinforced his false hero's fame. But back then, Abel had no idea about these royal intrigues. By the way, Maya broke the silence. What are we researching? Abel lifted his head from the notes. I'm looking for any magical device that could broadcast magical signals to spread the use of the Magiphone. Maya's eyes lit up with understanding. Ah, Magiphone. It's about that long-range magical mobile phone. Didn't you tell me about it before? 3 hours passed in focused silence. All right, Abel said, stretching. For now, I'm just randomly flipping through the books here. You can go and read the ones that interest you. He dived back into work, carefully copying ancient writings. It was exhausting work. Different alphabets and symbols from various regions and eras made the text incredibly difficult to decipher. One book especially caught his eye. It was written by an alchemist named Altamia, who died 80 years ago. And although the content was fascinating, the style was so deliberately confusing that it seemed as if it was written to mock the readers. This alchemist is very interesting and clever if possible. I would talk about him with someone of the same age. But if I'm looking for someone who can easily live past 80 years, I should probably ask elves or wise dragons, right? Yoruba Maya suddenly appeared nearby. Look at this, she exclaimed, handing over a book. On the cover was written Wigner's travel diary about the Yoruba people, author Urker Wigner. The name immediately seemed familiar. Wigner, Maya beamed. Remember that old guy from the reconnaissance group when we went to explore Zesamruin, right? Her excitement was palpable, as if that guy fought a dragon for 3 nights and 3 days. And look, this book is so popular that it says, the next volume will be released soon. Later, near the library, next to Maya, she sighed. It's so annoying that we aren't allowed to take books. I learned so much today. I'll probably come here again tomorrow. Then she turned to Abel. You should run around less aimlessly, and finally try to raise your adventurer rank, because a high rank gives the right to use certain rooms, right? Abel shook his head, but you know it would be too troublesome if I became too famous and lost my freedom, see? At that moment, a familiar voice interrupted him. Hey, Abel-chan. It was Shim, an F-rank adventurer who helped them find housing and showed the way to the library when they first arrived in Assam. Maya enthusiastically told her about Wigner's diary, which they had found. Shim smiled. There are a bunch of complicated books there, from which I practically understand nothing. But there are also adventure ones for simple people, you know. Suddenly something changed in Shim's voice. Oh, by the way, they say that recently some strange organization has been noticeable in Lamarna. Do you know anything about them, Maya-chan? Abel and Maya looked at her in surprise, and Shim continued. I heard that they have 2 horns and some kind of stone on their head, but Maya-chen, you don't have any stones in your head, right? The blood in Abel's veins froze. 2 horns and a stone on the forehead. That was an unmistakable description of the race of doom. Why are they in Lamarna? Maya hesitated, denying it, but her face turned pale with horror. No, it can't be. They even came here to look for me, and this thought was unbearable for her. Her body froze. Hey, Maya, exclaimed Abel when she suddenly rushed forward. He rushed to her, but it was already too late. Maya fell to the ground, unconscious. Far away in the village of Marin, another crisis was unfolding. An angry crowd surrounded the house of the village head, their voices rising in fierce chanting, Bring out the village head. They say that Abel can no longer create those leaves. What does that mean? In the house nearby, Giselle was desperately calling for her brother, but she was restrained by a huge loyal beast. In the chief's house, the village elders were passionately arguing. How could the details of that meeting have leaked? Demanded the chief. An elder slammed his fist on the table. It's obvious. What a fool. I knew inviting Norman to that meeting was a mistake. If he acted like that, those who have already tasted Abel's leaves will not be satisfied with their leaves. Village head, what should we do? The chief ran his finger over his beard, his face gloomy. If we allow this to continue, the unrest will never subside. His eyes hardened with determination. We have no other choice. Watching the chaos from the safety of the dense forest, Giselle barely smiled. Incredible, she whispered to herself. She pressed a thick, luxuriously decorated book tightly to her chest. It really was, as Shimshin said. A dark, calculating look flashed across her face. So soon they will send a few people to search for Nisama. She turned and walked deeper into the forest, leaving all the commotion behind. A young boy from the village ran after her. Gizzle-chan, just as I thought, I feel something bad about that magical book, you know. Who is this Shim you keep talking about? Gazelle just smiled without replying and walked on. A sinister promise was born in her mind, a message for her distant brother. Just wait, Nisama. I know Abel stays with me only because he owes me money, she admitted quietly, but that money is not important to me. I just hope you will take me with you on the journey. She grabbed the sheets tighter, her resolve hardened. I don't want to go back home, and Abel was silent, absorbing the weight of her past. He remembered his parents, one from the previous world and the other from this one. They were completely different, but neither ever tried to stop him from going his own way. He looked straight at Mia, his face clear and determined. If you hate your hometown so much, he said, cutting through her fuss with cold logic, then to hell with it. Her eyes widened. He offered her a simple and brilliant solution. If they are chasing you, we will just run away and continue traveling together. For Mia, who was drowning in fear and despair, his words became a lifeline. Leela, overhearing, intervened. Mia has been through so much, she sighed. If that's the case, I will help too, and immediately pointed out the weak spot in their plan. Mia and Abel stood out, so it was easy for the pursuers to gather eyewitness testimony in Lamarna. I'm sorry for causing trouble, Mia whispered, and Abel, as always practical, replied. For now, we need to get out of here as quickly as possible and find a place to hide. However, I still want to look at the books in the library. Leela pondered this, somewhere you can wait out, while Abel continues his magical research. Her mind buzzed and began searching for a solution. Far away, in the settlement of the Marin clan in the border forest, a search party was being assembled tensely. They had only one goal: to bring back Abel. The entire settlement was gripped by quiet panic. Abel was the only one who knew how to grow their precious tobacco, the cornerstone of their economy, and to bring him back, they would have to break the oldest and most sacred rule. Leaving the settlement was forbidden, and those who risked it would regret it. Abel's father bid his daughter goodbye. Take good care of our home, Gina. The girl, clutching a heavy grimoire, whispered to her mother, Don't worry, we will definitely bring Nissim back. A boy named Falal looked at her worriedly. Giselle, he began, isn't she acting strange? He couldn't say exactly what, but her aura had become completely different. She never parted with that strange grimoire. After Abel left, Gazelle threw herself into studying magic with feverish devotion, as if desperately trying to catch up with him. The grimoire was a relic from her grandfather's library. She looked into the distance. The sudden disappearance of her fiancé still hurt. Damn Abel, she muttered, clenching her fist after he turned the whole village upside down and just disappeared without a word. If I ever see you again, I'll tell you everything. Chief of the Marin clan, look, the squad is moving out. Chief, is this really okay? His advisor asked. The chief fell silent for a moment, recalling an ancient law: whoever leaves the village will regret it. They were breaking a sacred tradition to bring Abel back. Although I have no proof, the old leader said thoughtfully, his eyes sharp with cunning. I think this meant his voice broke like a hint at some deeper hidden truth hanging in the air. Meanwhile, at the western gates of Lamarn, Mia's pursuers received fresh information. Boss, we just got a report from a witness, said the subordinate. They were seen on a horse-drawn cart heading to Simu, about 2 days' ride from here, and it seems she's traveling with a white-haired young man. His hair and clothes indicate he is from the Marin clan. The chief's eyes narrowed. The Marins are said to never leave their remote lands. The presence of a Marin clansman became an unexpected variable in his calculations. He ordered to set out for Assam. His troops accepted the order and moved out. A line of soldiers instantly blocked their path. Stop. The royal guard stepped forward to explain what was happening. The chief demanded an answer, and he said, Yesterday a magical beast raged here. Now the rocks may crumble. The road will open only in about a week, so we will have to take a detour. The chieftain did not slow his pace. The laws of Dinrat do not apply to us. The guard raised his spear in shock. Hey, if you go further, you will be detained for treason. The leader simply stepped forward, and the guards rushed to intercept him. With one contemptuous movement, he shattered their crossed spears. The wood splintered like dry twigs. Suddenly, a dull rumble shook the canyon. A colossal part of the cliff broke off from the precipice and rushed straight at them. The kingdom's guards screamed in pure terror. The chieftain, Maya's father, just raised his eyes to the stone mountain rolling down, and his face showed complete disdain. He pulled his fist back, and power crackled around him. Then he struck not the stone, but the very air. An explosion of impact force burst from his fists, hitting the boulder with incredible strength. The stone mass instantly vanished, turning into a rain of dust and pebbles that fell safely. The kingdom's guards could only stand and stare. Their minds could not cope with the destructive force they had just witnessed. Among the falling debris, the leader spoke only one word. His voice sounded with a low growl. He clenched his fist, his eyes blazing with terrible, unwavering determination. I will bring you back. A long, strong wall winds through rolling hills, marking the border of a remote territory. On these lands, Abel and Mia carefully examine the local vegetation, while the market nearby buzzes with life. Someone's voice calls his name, and Abel's face instantly becomes calm and analytical. The Lord's lackey approaches and asks why he is in the field. Abel picks up a handful of soil and says he heard about problems with the magical herb and came himself to check the quality of the ground. The steward could not contain his surprise and remarked that Sir Abel turned out to be not only a skilled hunter of magical beasts, but also well-versed in botany. Abel smiled modestly and replied that he had studied it in his hometown. The steward raises an eyebrow and asks if Abel is really satisfied with his reward after all. For defeating a class a magical beast, the reward and promotion should be many times greater. Abel just smiles and assures that everything is fine. He began to explain the true purpose of his mission. The only thing he asked for was a roof over their heads and a corner to rest in Farge, a rural area on the western edge of the country. For half a month, this territory had been completely isolated. Its trade routes were cut off by a powerful magical beast that even experienced adventurers did not dare to challenge. It was on Shime's recommendation that they came here. The monster is a terrible three-headed dragon, a hydra of enormous strength that terrorized the entire region. But before Abel's stunning power, it had no chance. A blinding flash and the creature disappeared. For this incredible feat, the local lord received them as true heroes. They refused the huge reward and only asked for permission to take shelter on this land, a calculated move that stunned the locals. Abel explains his masterstroke to the steward. In exchange for service, he secured a promise of a research laboratory and a constant supply of materials. Everything must be ready that very night, and in this remote wilderness with meager trade, he found the perfect place to work in solitude. May looks at him worriedly as if to say, "You went through so much because of me," but Abel only smiles confidently and cuts off her fears, explaining that it is unlikely they were followed all the way to the very edge of the kingdom of Dinlat, because the foundation of their new life is now securely laid. "What are you even saying after all this?" Mia asked indignantly, and Abel, continuing, explained that it would also be convenient for her to stay here. He would be able to conduct his research in peace, and they would have everything necessary in a securely protected laboratory, all thanks to the support of the local lord. Mia notices that the local land is strangely fertile, not like in her hometown, and perhaps that is why magic affects it so much, causing poor harvests. Abel admits that he is interested in agriculture and once tried to mass-produce a certain herb using magic as a basis. Mia smiles, simply happy that he found a new project to engage in. "Yes," Abel says decisively, "I will handle this." Raising his hand in triumph, he exclaimed, "I will make a real sensation in the magical world from this rural corner." A group of local guards watches from afar, completely stunned by the traveling mage who defeated the three-headed dragon, and whisper among themselves about how strange he is. Far beyond the walls of Lomirna, in a large trading city of the kingdom of Dinlat, a group of nobles staggered in shock. The news turned out to be true. They cursed their unfortunate fate, barely escaped from a pack of magical beasts, only to end up in a foreign city. Someone warned that leaving the settlement is forbidden, and whoever does will regret it. The group leader tries to encourage the panicking comrades, who whine that they want to go home. Two juniors in the group, a boy and a girl, looked disdainfully at this pitiful spectacle, and the girl noticed that Gisel, Abel's sister, skillfully dealt with the pursuing magical beasts. They discussed the search for Abel. They found witnesses, but in the town there was not the slightest trace. The locals were hostile and shifted all the investigative work onto them. Somewhere in the silence of the forest, Gazelle is carefully studying the pages of a large ancient tome. She lifts her eyes from the book, her face troubled. The trail of her older brother ends here. Morale is at zero, and she thinks to herself, if it continues like this, she will have to return to the settlement. Clinging to the last hope, she decides to wait for a favorable sign, confident that under the light of the full moon they are getting closer to Abel. At the farm in Farjai, the sky suddenly opened. A heavy rain began. Abe lifts his gaze to the rain. Panic is visible on his face. The workers at the farm see him standing in the storm and call for him to come back inside before he catches a cold. But Abel is in panic. He shouts that the rain will wash away the seedlings of the totem pumpkins he planted. He summons the tower construct Ashura 5000, which bursts out of the ground. The golem pulls out a weapon, and Abel resolutely declares that he will blow away the very rain clouds. Pointing the weapon-like arm of the golem at the sky, he releases a powerful spell, shouting, "O wind's terror." The magic circle flared to life as immense energy gathered and sliced through the air. The spell tore the sky, ripping the clouds into pieces and revealing the clear blue sky behind them. The rain stops instantly. The farm worker looks on in disbelief, but suddenly starts laughing triumphantly. He shouts, "Nothing is impossible for me." The next day, however, at Lord Abel's estate, he is bedridden, completely exhausted and feverish. Mia rushed to him, and he muttered that his life might end here because this is not just an ordinary cold. But the doctor reassures the worried Mia that he will be fine by tomorrow, scolds Abel for running into the fields, and orders him to rest. That evening, Mia sits by his bed, promising to stay with him. She had heard from the locals that the World Tree's totem watches over his pumpkins. While Abel sleeps peacefully, Mia rests her head beside him and vigilantly watches over him. A faint, bright dot of light glowed on Mia's forehead. The light detaches and flows toward Abel, and suddenly his mind clears and the fever recedes. A stream of shimmering particles flows from Mia to Abel, then arcs out the window. A trail of light raced over the estate and rose into the night sky. It continues to ascend, drawing a bright streak through the boundless cosmos. High above the mountains, the light merges into one and forms a shining sign cross that illuminates the heavens. Giselle and her companions in hoods saw a miracle in the sky. It was exactly the sign she had been waiting for. She and the leading mage raised their eyes in wonder, realized that this divine sign points the way. Meanwhile, at the manor, dawn broke the next morning. Abel slowly wakes up. He gets up and feels completely refreshed. Suddenly, he is struck by a flash of insight, a memory of a dream. "There is no time to dawdle," he exclaims and jumps out of bed. He runs out of the room and excitedly shouts to the surprised Mia that she must try the magic circle he saw in the dream. On the hill behind the Lord's manor, Abel releases a devastating burst of power, tearing the earth and ripping a huge trench in it. Maya just stands and watches, shocked and horrified by this raw display of power. "Wow, it really worked," exclaims Abel, thrilled by the result of his new inspiration. He thinks aloud that maybe these incredible ideas come to him every time he gets sick. Mia is still worried and afraid that the landlord will scold them for the damaged property. Abel pays no attention to her. He is already focused on the next step. He needs a good reason for the destruction, but first he must name this powerful new technique. While he is pondering, the sound of someone landing on the ridge above them sharply cuts through the air. Against the sky, a group in cloaks is visible. Their leader, a stern man with noticeable horns, looks down and says coldly, "I have found you." As a leader and as a father, he stood unwavering. In his eyes gathered a storm of duty. The morning calm of the neighboring town was shattered by a disturbing scene. Two adventurers on the road pointed to the Lord's estate, and a column of smoke rose from the hill behind it. They quickened their pace, their steps show haste. But suddenly their path was blocked. Before them stood a squad of formidable figures in white robes with hoods, and the gaze of their leader radiated an aura of absolute power. Meanwhile, suspecting nothing, Abel called Mia. He stretched, feeling the effects of a long rest. "Let's go have breakfast," he announced. "I had been bedridden for some time, so I am very hungry." Mia pointed with her hand to the ravaged surrounding landscape, the result of his previous battle. "If they find this, won't the Lord be angry?" she asked. Abel just smiled. "Oh, definitely. I'll summon the construction totem later. It will fix everything." When they were walking to the town, he noticed the bustle. The town was already noisy, although it was still early. "Hey!" a voice rang out. It was one of the adventurers who skillfully bypassed those in robes. He pointed at Mia and said, "Aha, it must be about this young lady. Sir, you have a visitor." Figures in white appeared from behind the trees, and their presence chilled the air. Mia froze, her face turned pale from pure horror. Her eyes widened when she saw their leader, a man with familiar horns and a grim expression. It was her father. "Dad," she whispered, not believing it. The man's gaze did not leave her. His voice was low and firm. "Mia." The order left no room for objections, but Mia could only watch, confused and frightened. Before she could answer, Abel stepped between them and shielded her. "Mia said she doesn't want to return to you," he declared sharply. "If you don't care about her, just leave her alone." She found her voice, fear turned into anger. "You abandoned me all this time, and now suddenly appeared to take me back. What do you want?" The man's stern expression did not change. "So Mia's power is finally beginning to awaken," he said, as if that explained everything. Abel froze in surprise and whispered, "What are you talking about?" The father's patience ran out. His eyes narrowed and flashed with a poisonous look. "Step back, brat." Abel did not move. Instead, he raised his hand, and a complex magical circle flared above his palm. "Teleportation," he said calmly, as if talking about the weather. Suddenly, a huge totem with many limbs emerged from the air and crashed between them with the force of a meteor. Men in cassocks recoiled in shock. "Matt is dead," Abel ordered to drag her onto the structure. The totem instantly rushed forward, raising a huge cloud of dust. It became their means of escape. It rushed through the forest, carrying them away from the confrontation. On board the totem that was rushing at full speed, Abel's thoughts were racing. It was unlikely to negotiate with him. How did they find us? Suddenly, the ground exploded before them. Abe and I screamed in shock. Standing in the trench, he dug himself, and appearing faster than their eyes could catch up, Mia's father completely blocked their path. Abel's face turned to stone. It seemed we have no choice but to fight. He turned to Mia, his voice deadly serious. Mia, can I destroy your father and his people? Her eyes widened with fear, but the answer was resolute. I don't want to go back. Oh, right, shouted Albiel, pushing his hand forward, and a new magical circle exploded around him. Wrath of the Earth. Beneath the feet of my father and his people, the earth fiercely split. Stone pillars erupted from the ground. The chieftain only clenched his teeth, preparing to withstand the magical onslaught. Abel was not finished yet. Go Ashura, he commanded, and his battle golem charged into battle, its fist glowing with power. Guarantees a blurred future, a miracle of magical engineering. But his father dodged the blow with impossible ease. He slid through the barrage of the golem's attacks like a phantom on the battlefield. Abel, not believing his eyes, watched. He kept up with Ashura's movements. That old man a monster. The chieftain saw his chance. He dodged the blow and thrust his fist into Ashura's body. The strike was colossal. The very ground beneath the golem cracked. Abel reacted instantly. Oh, earth, become a wall. From beneath the earth, a towering wall of solid stone rose and blocked the chieftain's path. But this was not an obstacle at all. The wall shattered into pieces like glass, torn to fragments by his wild physical strength. He emerged from the rubble completely calm, as if nothing had happened. He closed the distance again and lunged closer to finish off Ashura, ready to dismantle the golem piece by piece. But Abel had already prepared his next move. Above him materialized 5 spheres of pure, condensed energy. Heidi magic metal, he roared. The 5 spheres shot forward like cannonballs and converged on a single target. Destructive explosions shook the forest, covering it with blinding light and thick smoke. The chief did not try to dodge. He simply tensed, preparing for the blow. The blast wave completely engulfed him. When the smoke began to dissipate, Abel stared intently at the epicenter. Did I overdo it? He thought. A stone fell to the ground with a crash, and from the dispersing smoke emerged a figure. It was Mia's father. His clothes were slightly torn, but he himself was intact, without a single wound. He didn't even have a scratch. Abel's eyes widened in pure shock. The chief's gaze was cold and scrutinizing, like a mage from Marina. He processed the information with terrible speed. The fact that a tribe member, who had not left his settlement for over 150 years, was now on Mia's side, doesn't that mean the distortion of the world is increasing? Ignoring the full weight of those words, Abel ordered his golem Asher, but the chief no longer paid attention to the construction. His burning gaze was fixed only on his daughter, but Maya. He growled, a strange mixture of rage and determination felt in his voice. With a deafening roar, he unleashed his true power. He grabbed Asher the golem forged from magic and steel with his bare hands. A grip that laughed in the face of all logic, he began to crush it. The air was filled with the sound of tearing metal and the crackle of spells. The golem, which had endured incredible torture, now tore like paper. The armor bent and shattered into pieces under incredibly rough pressure. Abel and Mia could only stand and watch in complete horror. They saw the pinnacle of magical craftsmanship being destroyed right before their eyes. The glade looked as if after a catastrophe, complete destruction. Before them lay the fallen majestic guardian Ashura lay, his mighty figure broken and motionless. Above the fallen creature towered the formidable silhouette of the leader of the Doom clan, his gaze cold and unwavering, and Abel froze, unable to believe his eyes. His mind refused to accept this impossible sight. A cold wave of fury surged over him. With a roar, he threw his hands forward. A complex magical circle flared up. A storm of air currents, sharp as blades, crashed down on the leader, a spell of such power that it could tear steel apart. The wind spell shattered against an invisible barrier, and the leader was thrown back. He tumbled through the air, yet still landed gracefully on his feet, completely unharmed. He stood silently and watched, as if Abel's desperate attack was merely a minor inconvenience. The silence in the forest pressed on the chest. Abel was panting, his thoughts racing. Your father. That was incredible, he admitted to Mia. Were his movements enhanced by magic? I don't understand how he so easily destroyed Shura, a creature of magic. Mia shook her head. It is a secret technique. It was passed down by our ancestors. I believe your master knew a similar technique with a wooden staff. She explained that it is a physical art that strengthens the body by channeling magical power through it, a skill that requires incredible control and is often supported by totems. It was a secret zealously guarded and so difficult to learn that even Abel tried and failed. The principles are completely different from my magic, Abel pondered, analyzing the new information. How does the Doom clan control it? He insisted, demanding more details. Is there something like totems of the Marin clan? If I knew the source of his power, maybe I would find his weak spot. They say the crystal in the center of the forehead of the Death clan preserves this power. The chief's voice cut through the air, calm and authoritative. Magic is governed by the union of spirits. He looked at Mia. She had previously been ordered not to use magic, unfortunately, because she perfectly senses spirits in the air. Abel's eyes widened with insight. He realized that they were simply looking down on her because she lacked the crystal. All the pieces of the puzzle came together. Now it was clear how he managed to track us exactly. Abel grimly turned to Mia. Sorry, those devices I took, the World Tree Totem, they emit a noticeable aura. The situation was critical. The chief was not chasing after valuables, he was hunting for his daughter. If we stay here, they will find us instantly, Abel thought. If I use magic, the aura will immediately reveal our location, and with that destructive power of Ashura, we won't be able to fight him face to face. There was not a minute left to come up with the perfect strategy. The ground trembled underfoot as the chief closed the distance. His speed was superhuman, and his presence suffocating. Each step cracked the earth beneath his boots. He stopped just a few steps away, like an irresistible force of nature. Abel raised his hands in a gesture of surrender. I give up, he said. There was no emotion in his voice. I see no way to defeat you in my current state. The chief paused for a moment, his face unreadable, then added, I respect my will. But May had her own will. With a cry of defiance, she pulled out a sharp dagger and pressed the cold steel to her throat. I will not return, she shouted, her voice trembling but firm. If you try to bring me back, I will end my life right here. The chief snorted, don't pretend, such a show-off. Abel finally lost his composure. Chasing after his daughter until she is forced to flee is the act of the worst father, he shouted, and his voice echoed among the trees. Mia was always lonely. Everyone ignored and shut her out. She just wanted to see the world. He told about his past. His parents were sometimes cold, sometimes demanding, but still allowed him to do what he loved. You isolated your daughter and did not let her do what she wanted. Bringing her back would mean the same as death. This is the only resistance we can offer. You think this is a show? Abe challenged. His eyes blazed with tension. You think Mia won't manage? Then I will do it. No matter how much you move, my spell will be faster. Angry at the boy's defiance, the chief struck his fist on the ground, shattering the stone beneath him. Here it is, Gambit. Abel's mind worked lightning fast. Whatever the reason, he clearly wants to bring her back alive, he thought. So to create a chance, we need to stage a show. He looked at me as if he knew everything. A little and that would be enough. If I manage to unsettle him, he will lose concentration. That is when I will use his own observance against him. Earth, create a wall, commanded Abel. From beneath the earth erupted a towering barricade of solid rock, blocking the chieftain's path. It was a futile gesture. The chief shattered it with a single contemptuous blow, turning the wall into a cloud of dust and debris. He emerged from the rubble without a single scratch. O Earth's wrath, Agin throws it, his hands just a blur. The very ground beneath the chieftain's feet began to churn and boil, a chaotic whirl of earth and stone rising to engulf him. He stood firm against the barrage of Atakshi's strength was immense. His eyes narrowed, sharply focusing on the magical attack. But it was only a distraction. While the chieftain was diverted, a small wooden totem appeared in the air behind him. I teleport the World Tree Totem, filled with my magical power, Abel declared resolutely, embodying the true heart of his plan. The totem pulsed with an aura exactly like Abel's. The boy guessed that while Abel was confused, he would mistake it for mine. The chieftain shuddered, his senses overwhelmed. In that moment of confusion, Abel began his final spell. O spirits, you who created the earth here in Noforge. Earth magic suddenly switched. Instead of a fence, it became a trap. Thick, mighty strips of hardened earth shot out from beneath the ground. Turning around the body of the chieftain, it completely covered his arms and legs. He struggled, muscles tensed against the bonds, but he could not break free from. When the opponent froze in place, Abel revealed his signature move. In his hands materialized a new weapon, long and flexible. Hit him Manga, the technique of metal transformation. He announced it, his voice ringing triumphantly. I call it Abel Whip. He swung the arcane weapon with all his might. The whip sliced through the air and cracked loudly, and struck the captive chieftain with devastating force. The blow was colossal, the shockwave spread and shattered the very trees around them. The whip itself shattered into pieces, its task was complete. It delivered a single perfect strike. Murasif, chieftain of the Doom tribe, spoke, and his voice sharply cut through the silence. "Why do you keep chasing Mia all the time?" The mighty chieftain, tightly bound by Abel's magical whip, stubbornly remains silent, and on his face is a mask of contempt. Abel's gaze was sharp, attentive. To be clear, if it was about the jewels that Mia took from the Tree of the World in Roman City, the chieftain's eyes barely widened. Abel pressed his advantage, his mind a rapier. "You were tracking those traces and Ashura's magical power, right? Ashura is that wooden doll you smashed to pieces." A surge of wild power burst from Murisev. "You still have the strength to resist," Abel said, impressed by the chieftain's resilience. With a fierce roar, Murisev struggled against the shackles, magical energy crackling around him. But it was in vain. Abel simply gave the command, "Whip season." The magical construct instantly contracted, striking the mighty warrior to the ground and extinguishing his resistance in a cloud of dust. Manhwa groaned in pain, gritting his teeth. "Although one or two bones should have been damaged, what about your body?" Abel, thoughtful, could analyze the natural endurance of opponents. The tribal chieftain raised his head, his face showing both anger and awe, the metal changing in an instant under horribly precise magic. "Is this the power you gained by using my daughter?" "What are you talking about?" Abel asked, pretending to know nothing. "Last night I saw a symbol hovering in the sky," Murisev revealed, his voice low and heavy. "It really was Mia's power. As foretold by the prophecy, he looked at Abel, eyes filled with grim certainty. "I don't know what your goal is, but you probably approached my daughter because you felt that as a sorcerer you could use her power." Mom, who was silently listening, was now completely confused. "Dad, what is this all about?" The two men stubbornly stared at each other, a chasm of secrets stretched between them. Marissa finally spoke, his voice heavy with ancient sorrow. "Do you really know nothing?" A gloomy silence descended over the plains. 4,000 years ago, he began to look into the distance. The guardian god of this land, Kujir, rushed into battle against the evil sky god Silfem and locked him in the moon. It is said that the exhausted Kujir fell into a deep sleep after that battle. Somewhere on this land to recover. Abel listened carefully, absorbing divine knowledge. Today almost only the elves of the celestial kingdom know about this, but in Murisev's eyes burned fierce, tragic pride. "We, the Doom tribe, are descendants of a race created by the celestial god." Mia and Abel froze in silence. "What did you say?" The chieftain continued his story, a tale woven into the very fabric of his people's existence. The sky god created the Doom tribe to form a military force capable of opposing the god Kujir. So, as the legend says, the god of the sky was sealed in the moon by the god Kujir, and Kujir, having spent his last strength on that seal, himself fell into a deep sleep. But even before the sealing, the sky instilled a living book into the body of the ancestor of the Doom tribe. "Live for me," repeated Abel, and a glimmer of understanding lit up in his eyes. Medes cast a keen glance at his daughter, Me. Her eyes widened in shock. "It's you." The weight of his words hung over them. "With tribes of Doom, born of the sky god, were forgiven, and the god Kujir allowed us to live in the land of Dinrat. What hides behind that tale of and the elves probably do not know. The sky god is gathering strength to resurrect on the moon. Only a few in our tribe inherited this prophecy." He looked at me, his face grim. "After 2,000 years, the descendant of Doom will become a mighty weapon of the sky god." Wait a second," interrupted Abel, and the pieces of the cosmic puzzle clicked into place. "I don't know if it's a legend of your tribe or something else, but how could you know about the resurrection of the ancient evil god from Mythsend, even where Kujir is hiding?" "The moon festival," Dinmay Mersef responded. "The day when the moon approaches once every 500 years. They say that at this time, the magical power of all living things in the world is strengthened, so different countries and religions celebrate it in their own way." Abel's thoughts raced. "I think this should happen in about 6 months, he estimated. Even in the city they were already saying that due to the recent trade revival, preparations for the festival could be advanced right. He glanced at Murisev, and a new terrible theory surfaced in his mind. "So, what do you think about the fact that recently magical beasts in various regions have been going mad more often?" Medisev's gloomy face was all the confirmation he needed. Abel recalled recent events, the disaster with magical beasts in Roman, the appearance of the demon Zalaman, and that unprecedented chaos that should not have happened in recorded history. Even I remembered Nargalin, who blocked the trade route in the lands of the Fags. Morsef explained that our tribe of the Doomed is a race created by the sky god. His voice was burdened with duty. "For 2,000 years we lived in peace and had no reason to swear loyalty to the Creator. But if there is even the slightest chance that the unrest will bring us our cursed child, whom the sky can turn into its weapon, we will never give her up." He looked at his daughter with deep sorrow. Kent's Maya, like a non-stone, was isolated in a fortress surrounded by a barrier. He closed his eyes. I did not know how strong those barriers were, but thought that she should be hidden at least until the moon festival in about 15 years. Mia's voice trembled. Why didn't you tell me? Tears welled up in her eyes as the truth shattered her old resentment. If I had known this, I would not have hated my family and would not have even run away. 15 years ago, Morsav admitted, this memory still hurts. When I realized that my newborn child was cursed, I, as the tribe leader, had to eliminate any chance that could bring crisis to the world. A picture flashed through his mind. He was holding his tiny daughter in his arms, but He met her gaze, his eyes were filled with pain. The reason I left you alive is my selfishness. May froze in place, the realization struck her like thunder. I am only a weapon that the evil god will use when he resurrects. Meanwhile, on the ridge beyond two mountains, a bright symbol shone in the night sky. This is truly a good sign, whispered a voice from the darkness. Giselle stood at the edge of the cliff, her eyes shining with delight. He is there, just as Simsan said, right? I feel the magical power of my older brother coming from there. She clutched the grimoire in her hands, a triumphant smile shining on her face. Coo, I don't know why, but it's strange how everything is falling into place so easily in my favor. The book pulsed with dark energy. This is undoubtedly my father's wish. I will make not only Abel mine, but also that girl. Her smile was the embodiment of absolute confidence. Yes, of course, I knew it. I knew that my older brother wanted to return home, right? And so, standing before her father, the demon Lord Murasef, she finally spoke the truth that now haunted her. A weapon that the sinister god will use when he resurrects. Terrible realization overwhelmed her. If what my father says is true, then I am the being who will ultimately bring disaster to this continent. Even the recent surge of Abel's magical power, wasn't it influenced by the sleeping power of the sky god within me? Her thoughts immediately fly to him, her heart tightens with fear. What would Abel think, just to think he would be gripped by horror, if the magic he considered his own turned out to be the product of some dark force? Fear paralyzed her. Could it be that he no longer wants me nearby? She hesitantly approached him, her voice barely audible. Abel. While he was turning back, for a moment, his face became completely unreadable. But suddenly his face spread into a bright, almost maniacal smile, and his eyes sparkled with pure, unrestrained delight. Mayana, her father, just stared, completely stunned by his reaction. Abel's thoughts were already racing, connecting variables so quickly that an ordinary mind couldn't keep up. He turned to Murzef, his voice ringing with discovery. If what you say is true, then Mia is destined to give the subordinates of the heavenly god power when he breaks the seal so they can conquer the world. The implications were staggering. That is why, being a wizard with Mia nearby, I came under her influence and could perform powerful magic. He suddenly remembered a key moment, even that cunning idea I came up with. It all happened during the nightmare at the inn in Roman. A new idea suddenly clicked in his head. Doesn't this mean that when my mind is clouded, I am more susceptible to external influence? He turned back to the stunned Mia, and his face shone with sincere gratitude. After all, it was precisely because I was with you that I was able to awaken my power without even noticing it. Thank you, Mia. She still couldn't come to her senses. Doesn't this scare or unsettle you even a little? If the prophecy is true, I will eventually bring disaster to this country. But for Abel, it was just an opportunity. What are you talking about? I couldn't possibly miss something so interesting, right? He firmly takes my hands, his enthusiasm simply off the charts. From now on, please stay close to me as a subject for magical research. Murasef observed that exchange. A spark of understanding flashed in his eyes. Yes, if we understand the situation, there is no need for us to be enemies. Abel caught the moment and boldly extended his hand to the demon lord in a political gesture. I will also help protect myself. Let's try together, father. Murasef's face twisted with rage. You, scoundrel, have no right to call me father. No matter how much he boiled with anger, the demon lord remained practical. But with such power, even if you say you will protect her, do you really have a plan? Abel's smile did not waver. Yes, about that. After 20 minutes, they found themselves in front of Fage's mansion. The lord himself was in complete panic, pointing at the horizon with a trembling finger. Lord Abel, what does this mean? Behind them, the mountain was split in half. The landscape was devastated. The local nobles froze in horror, and Abel, calm amid the chaos, simply said, He theatrically pointed at Marizef and his retinue. Yes, I was the one who called them here. The crowd erupted into confusion. When all the nobility's eyes were fixed on him, Abel began to weave his story. I recently talked about this with my lord, didn't I? About finding out why the harvest in these parts is so poor. This man is a real expert, you know. He pretended to apologize. You see, the expert was busy. We didn't even know when he would arrive, and I forgot to say that we would be conducting excavations. Sorry. He continued the story, which became more elaborate with every second, because he is even more passionate about research than I am. When he arrived, it seemed he was so delighted with the matter, which he had never seen before, that he simply couldn't sit still. Isn't that right, Mr. Expert? Before the stunned lord could even object, Abel bowed. Sorry for causing such a fuss so early. We will use magic to restore what was destroyed, so everything will be as it was again. Skillfully diffusing the situation, Abel led the group to a landscape covered with scars. Well then, first let's make a totem for construction work, all right. Morasif glanced around. His face darkened. There is too little magical power in this wooden log, and it is at moments like these that I realize how blessed the environment of the Marin settlement is. His voice became tense. Do you really think you will find a solution if you just sit still? Even as we speak, the time of the heavenly god's resurrection is approaching. Abel's gaze rose to the sky. He remembered that ominous symbol. Without a barrier like the one protecting our village, the magic sign will appear in the sky again, and the minions of the sky god will surely track it down. What is this ancient barrier of the tribe of doom? Abel asked. Is there anyone here who can explain the magical formula and other details? Murzef shook his head, but then pulled out a small hexagonal wooden artifact and said, in that case, I have a magical tool for a temporary barrier. The object was covered with ancient inscriptions, and a single gem shone at its center. This is a piece from ancient ruins, brought from the settlement, Morasif explained. If returned there, it will become even stronger. Abel studied the artifact, his mind quickly calculating all possible options. Honestly, this looks bad, Murzef admitted. I have no idea how powerful the heavenly god's might is, but with this level of power, a sorcerer like me would instantly notice it. Abel had already thought of several moves. I want to extract a bit more information. Briefly returning to the Doom settlement, we can grab research and informational materials from here. So I ask everyone from Doom to help clear the surroundings. Let's first do everything we can here, and then decide what to do next. He called his creation, so go help the World Tree Totem and its task. Mia will help too, teleport. But as soon as the totem materialized, Murasov exclaimed, wait, and stared intently at the wooden figurine right. That's not all, said the demon lord, glancing between the totem and the ancient artifact in his hand. It seemed to me that it resembles something, and I remembered. Isn't it made from the same material as this barrier magic device? The realization struck Abel like a lightning bolt. It's true, the basis of this magical instrument. It is made from the world tree wood. I didn't notice because it was so old and worn. Exactly, we found this place last night when we saw the symbol appear in the sky above this land. That's how I understood that Mia is here. Mia put together another piece of the puzzle. It happened when I had a high fever in the tavern in Roman, while Abel was suffering from a nightmare. He, waking up, involuntarily created a huge magic circle, and if this sign really appears as a reaction to the power of Mia affecting me, then Murasef-san and others should have already found out where we were 2 months ago. Nirezef nodded grimly. I have been pursuing Mia for 2 months, but I have never seen such a reaction. The answer hung in the air, like on the palm for everyone, the totem of the world tree. Doesn't that mean it didn't work last night? Asked Mia. Abel assembled the puzzle in his head. I'm not sure, but maybe physical distance mattered. Last night I sent the world tree totem to patrol the fields. Now that you say it, I really wasn't nearby. The theory began to strengthen. Abel explained that totems by their nature can hide from evil creatures, like a barrier, and if the world tree strengthens barriers, then totems made from it should have even stronger protective power. This is a real breakthrough. The world tree is worth studying, isn't it? Said Abel, turning to his companions. Mia's eyes lit up. I felt. This is truly fate bringing us together, but suddenly a more prosaic thought intruded. Damn, if it comes to that, I still haven't given Mia the money from that time when we bought it. But Abel had already moved on to the next phase. First, we need to find out exactly where the world tree stands. Moraiset tried to intervene. Wait, please, there are still matters I need to resolve here. Talan, we are immediately setting out to scout the world tree. Suddenly Marisov sharply raised his head, his face turned to stone. Gather up, he thundered to his people, and a wave of huge ominous energy crashed down on them. This feeling, a demon maybe, whispered one of his men. Something ominous is approaching, confirmed Murasov, narrowing his eyes. It can't be. Abel turned pale, him, already. Perhaps the appearance of the sign last night alarmed not only us but also the servants of the heavenly god. The voice of Zephmiri cut through with a low growl. They are coming. Over the hill, a squad of knights appeared on the ridge. Abel's blood froze in his veins. He recognized their flawlessly white and gold armor and the woman leading them. His voice was a strangled whisper. He froze in complete shock, unable to comprehend that she was here. A voice from the grimoire sounded in Giselle's head, like a memory from the very dawn of its existence. When I was born, the first thing I saw was a huge light. Inside the blinding sphere swirled an ethereal, turbulent darkness. I don't know why, but somehow I recognized in it the one who created me. My creator's name is Silfem. He is like a father to me. An avalanche of information overwhelmed his newly awakened consciousness, revealing the grand and tragic story of his creator, how another god defeated and sealed his father, who now slumbers, waiting for the perfect moment for his resurrection. And suddenly I found myself among countless shadows larger than me. They were born before me, so they were, as people say, elder brothers, and in each of them echoed the last command of their father. Descend to the surface, plunge the world into chaos, and from behind the scenes prepare the ground for my return, seize the book of spells prepared on the surface for the future lunar festival Dinmay. We descended to the surface, the voice continued, so that when our father resurrects, the invasion could proceed unhindered. While her comrades had colossal power, sowed chaos, and unleashed magical beasts to destroy countries, this creature was different. It had almost no magic of its own. His only gift, his only power, a subtle, barely noticeable ability to influence the hearts of the weak. The first attempts were catastrophic. It tried to seize a powerful magical beast, but its own essence was almost devoured. It settled into a mediocre mage, but a group of adventurers quickly discovered and expelled it, mocking its pitifulness. What a loser, they jeered. I thought it was a low-level demon because it had no aura. Humiliation burned within it. The only thing driving it forward was a desperate, strong desire to prove that it existed and to be useful to the father, like his older brothers. But it was completely powerless. Even approaching someone truly strong seemed impossible. Then, from its hiding place, it saw him. A young wizard travels together with companions. The demon immediately sensed his power. He was not an ordinary person. If only it could lure him into its ranks, if only it could master this body. But now it could not possess a person of his level. It had to find a weak spot, something, anything to exploit. And then it found the perfect key, a young woman reading a book in a distant town. "Dear brother," she whispered. "A way to get that, boys." Suddenly a figure appeared on the path ahead. "I wanted to see you, dear brother," she said. It was Giselle, with a calm face and a familiar grimoire tightly clenched in her hands. Abel froze, a wave of anxiety washed over him. "Gazelle, why are you here?" Mena stirred, confused. "Are you two acquainted?" Abel's voice tensed. "She is my younger sister." Lord Graham squinted, sensing a foreign, dissonant energy. That strange aura comes from that book. Maya, holding her breath, realized with fear. Could she be under the influence of a demon? Gazelle stepped forward. "Sorry, dear brother, I made you come to such a remote place." She gave a gentle, soothing smile. "Since then I have always regretted testing you. You were afraid because you broke the laws, right? But now everything in the village is different." She extended her hand. "Now even father will surely forgive you. Let's return to the village together." Abel froze, thoughts racing in his head. This was wrong, Giselle. Gazelle, step away from that grimoire. Abel shouted, his instincts screaming danger. That thing is dangerous. And his sister only smiled. All this thanks to Simsan, who, by divining, led me all the way here. Maya's jaw dropped. Gazelle's gaze was unwavering. "I am Gazelle Balak, and I am the fiancé of my brother Abel." Chaos Reign Lord Grem exploded with rage. "You bastard. What does this even mean? What were you going to do with my daughter?" The calm expression of Gazelle disappeared, and a cold look appeared on her face, directed straight at Mia. "And who are you, actually?" she demanded. May stunned stumbled. Abel's Gazelle sharply interrupted her. "What is your relationship with my brother?" Inside the book, the demon savored his victory. "I was really lucky." Who would have thought that the girl who was following Abel was the very same magical book that the father left? The plan was coming together perfectly. I knew it. There is no one more worthy than me to become the person the father trusts. This voice whispered to her in her head, "Let's gather Abel together. Ignore the girl next to him. Do exactly as I say, older brother." Abel froze, looking at the girl who had changed so much before him. Who was she? Now from Gazelle's own lips came a contemptuous intonation. "Just ignore the girl next to him. Don't you think you're acting too familiarly?" But Gazelle's own will rebelled for a moment. "Simsan, please be quiet," she sharply cut off, clutching the book. Mia looked puzzled at Abel. Who is your sister talking to?" But his eyes were fixed on the grimoire. Probably it was the thing that possessed the book. Lord Grem snorted disdainfully. His demonic senses ran through the energy and instantly assessed it, judging by everything. This power acts only on the mind, and if anything, then just a low-level demon. The demon's consciousness recoiled from the insult. "Low-level demon, how dare they? Both of them are mocking me." A wave of dark energy rolled from the book. Dazel choked, her body froze as the grimoire fell from her hands. She raised her gaze, and a twisted, evil smile spread across her face, and her eyes turned into black abysses with wicked white pupils. Lord Grem's eyes widened in horror. The demon had taken over her body. The possessed Gazelle reveled in her new body and proclaimed her dominion. "Now I control this body." She sharply pointed her finger directly at Abel. "Abel, obey me." Abel clenched his teeth. The demon's voice sounded triumphant. "Don't you dare do anything stupid. Know this: I hold your sister's life in my hands." Lord Grem quickly assessed the new terrible situation. "If we don't finish her quickly, it's the end for us. We must act, even if we have to sacrifice that girl, because that creature might reveal Mia's whereabouts to the god of heaven. The possessed one turned out to be Elle. She just smiled. Bring my doll here. A small wooden totem flew into her palm. She raised it high. A vortex of energy swirled around her. Oh, life force, come here. The ground cracked and crumbled beneath her feet as she drew incredible power. Energy converged into one and pulsed wildly. Abel and Lord Grem froze, stunned by the raw magical power that burst forth. The totem flew out of her palm like a bullet, straight at Mia. Oh no, shouted Lord Grem. But it was not an attack. The voice of the possessed gazelle sounded in a sharp whisper. Sleep. Mamie's eyes widened for a moment, then she collapsed to the ground unconscious. The demon laughed ominously. In that wooden doll was magic that makes the body stronger. Abel Giselle searched for you very persistently. Abel was shocked. The demon, mocking, continued his arrogant monologue. She mastered all the magic she could learn in that village, and also adopted the secret techniques of the Marin tribe, exactly what I expected from your blood sister. Mia lay unconscious at her feet. The demoness turned to Abel, confident in her victory. Well then, now I have 2 hostages. His voice was a poisonous whisper that sealed his fate. Surrender if you want to save these 2. Give up your body. Mia was taken hostage, and the situation sharply escalated. Giselle, whose eyes were under the demon's control, threw Abel an ultimatum. If you want to save the 2 of them, give up your body. Murazov's subordinates screamed in shock. All their attention was focused only on their captive leader. But before Murasev could do anything, Sim intervened, his voice calm like an anchor in a rising storm. Wait, he said, addressing the demon lord. I'm sorry about this, but if Miyu is taken, everything will go according to the plan of the holy god, even if I have to sacrifice that girl. Meanwhile, Sim's words were cold and calculated for one specific reaction. He was playing on Murasev's paternal instinct. You wanted to save your daughter, even if you had to hide her from the whole world, right? Aren't you, of all people, supposed to understand this? His gaze was fixed on Miyu, helplessly hanging in the crystal prison. Meanwhile, Sim continued, his mind racing through all possible options. If we attack recklessly, we will be in danger. Gazelle held the prison high above her head, a symbol of her control over the battlefield. The mind cut through the chaos and pointed to the only path to victory, so the only chance to save them both unharmed is to separate the demon from Jizzle. With the World Tree Totem, removing this nightmare obsession is not difficult, but a memory surfaced that past clash with Miyu's father. As then, empowered by the wooden doll's spell, Gazelle's forces would inevitably stop me before I could utter the spell that removes the curse. The plan was clear. The totem must be neutralized, and Jizzle uses it for the wooden doll. The demon in Gazelle sneered contemptuously. His patience was melting. Probably, I'll start by getting rid of these annoying creatures. A swirling magic circle burst from the hand. Oh, wind, tear these people apart. Sharp blades of air howled piercingly and rushed at them. Murzef instantly moved and became a living shield as the wind magic crashed into him, protecting those standing behind. While the assault raged, Sim transmitted crucial information. The totem regulated the physical enhancements provided by the wooden doll. Mazeva's eyes fixed on the small wooden figurine hanging in the sky. Understood, he growled. If we destroy this totem, I can pull the demon out of Gizzle's body. He roared to his warriors, all of you. They unleashed a wave of demonic power that surged forward, but Giselle was ready. Earth, she commanded, invoking another spell. A pillar of stone and earth burst upward, but it was only a distraction. All right, exclaimed Sim, seeing how F-Mirror was breaking through the chaos. The demon lord was approaching, his fist about to smash the totem hovering in the air, while the possessed Giselle watched with a terrifying smile. But at the last moment, when Murzef's attack was almost on target, the totem swiftly tilted aside with incredible speed. Before he could react, ghostly chains shot out from the doll, binding his hand and stopping his impulse. At the same time, a second earthly curse burst forth from the ground, much more powerful than the first, the wrath of the earth. The explosion swept through Murasef's subordinates, scattering them like leaves in a hurricane. Sim's eyes opened wide with understanding. It was a Tropa curse aimed at those who attack physically, a counteraction, and the demon's laughter echoed in the clearing. Did you really think I wouldn't notice? It said mockingly. I knew you would follow that totem to save both. Murasef groaned in pain. The curse tightened its grip. The demon fully focused on Sim. Well, now do you want to become my servant? I bet you do. Away from the battle, Giselle's family hurried through the forest. Her father said aloud anxiously, You're some kind of hunter's son, how pathetic you are. Her mother fussed with worry. The rest of the search party returned home. They missed home. We stayed alone, but we can't just leave Giselle-chan all by herself, right? The father's side was in despair. Really, what happened to my son and daughter that they came to such a distant place? Suddenly, the ground trembled from a distant explosion. What was that? They looked toward the source. Making their way through the trees, they reached the ridge. Before them stretched a landscape of complete devastation, a crater-strewn wasteland where the forest once stood. Murzef lay on the ground, groaning in pain. The demon took advantage of his advantage. His poisonous whisper crept into Sim's thoughts. Well then, what will you decide? Will you really let that doomed one die just like that? Stop, Sim. Then the demon's voice changed, becoming sad as he looked at the distant Abel. Why won't you praise me? Strange internal struggle flared up inside me, and I even learned to control the totem's reactions, something my older brother failed to do. I tried my best with the magic that my dear brother loved so much, and yet. But the voice was not Jizzle. Maya's consciousness was emerging in the crystal. Why don't you even look at me? Suddenly my body convulsed violently and fiercely in its prison. The demon inhabiting Gazelle was stunned. Consciousness was fading. It seemed to have stopped. We need this girl. Do not hurt her. The demon was losing control. His perfect host was rebelling from within. No, you misunderstood everything. It's not me, the girl in this body. At that moment of internal chaos, Murasef the Cursebinder shattered into pieces. Frid, the Lord of Demons, without wasting time, unleashed a destructive wave of power directly at the distracted Jizzle. Now's our chance, shouted Sim, seizing the moment. He sharply pushed forward the doll that removes the curse. Demon, leave this body. A shining magical circle enveloped the gazelle, and the demon howled as his connection was severed. Possession fell away, the crystal cage melted, and Mia fell. Her father caught her in time, saving her. Jacel collapsed to the ground, unconscious. A cloud of dark energy. The demon himself tried to escape, but Sim was already nearby. But I will never allow it, he said calmly, walking toward the terrified spirit. Demon, rest in peace. I have many questions for you, just wait there a little. Around the sinister wire of the demon lying on the ground, a magical vortex spun. With the last command, seal him. The book slammed shut sharply and imprisoned the essence between its pages. The danger passed. Sim rushed to the fallen Jacel. Are you okay? He asked, gently shaking her to wake her up. She blinked and opened her eyes, confused. My brother, what just happened? She began to explain in a quiet voice. I was sure the older brother would return immediately, so I did not hesitate and immediately regretted it. I was terribly worried that something might have happened to my brother, so when Sim-san asked to borrow my power, Sim looked at the sealed book, his face grim. I know, it's not your fault, it's the demon that uses vulnerable hearts. Gazelle raised her eyes to her brother, and repentance was read in her gaze. I will no longer insist that you marry me, she whispered, so let's together. Abel's expression softened, but his answer was not at all what she expected. Sorry, you see, even without that question about marriage, I don't think I can return. Gazelle looked puzzled. Wow. He tried to explain it lightly, but I somehow got involved in a matter that seems more dangerous than a demon. It was too interesting to just brush off. Of course, I definitely plan to return to the village when everything settles down, but when exactly I don't know yet. The shock in Gazelle deepened further. This is a crisis that could destroy the whole country. I don't know when I can return. For Giselle, those words became the last crack in her fragile psyche. Absolutely not, she shouted, her eyes wide open with horror. Dark thought seized her. My dear brother is being deceived. People from outside are misleading him. My poor dear brother, I must save him. She pushed Abel aside, her gaze fixed on a new source of strength. She feverishly crawled over the broken ground, ignoring the cries of others. Her hands fell on the sealed grimoire. Around her suddenly flared a dark magical circle. I call the one who is here. And the unclean aura began to flow from the book into her. Sim, the true lord of the demon, watched, not believing his eyes. Gazelle's voice was filled with eerie determination as she addressed the power in the book. Give me your power. I will show you that I can handle this better than you. So Sim could only watch, horrified. A furious stream of dark energy burst out, engulfing her, and she screamed simultaneously from pain and ecstasy. Abel screamed in horror, his voice lost in the world Jizzle. A blinding stream of dark energy burst out, engulfing Gazelle, and Abel shouted her name in terror. He froze in disbelief, his mind reeling. The seal was broken. He underestimated the true power of the demon, and now the consequences are unfolding right before him. From the chaotic, poisonous fog emerged a new figure, radiating an aura of pure evil. Giselle hung in the air, her body distorted, and her eyes glowed with unholy light. She was no longer the girl he knew. She had become the bearer of something ancient and terrible. From afar, Mursif watched, and his face turned to stone with realization. My dear brother is being deceived, he growled, noticing signs of a much deeper conspiracy. Possessed Giselle paid them no attention. Before her hand materialized a complex magical circle glowing with ominous power. Without saying a word, she released a focused beam of pure destruction aimed directly at the Lord of Demons. Murzef's sister gasped in terror, her eyes wide open. An explosion tore the earth apart and thundered with catastrophic force. Abel watched as his strategic mind analyzed the attack with cold horror and whispered, "Shantless magic, or has the demon fully possessed Gazelle's body?" Murzef's soldiers recoiled in horror, their fighting spirit shattered. "What kind of monster is this, damn it?" one of them shouted. The fugitive Myerzep Rod saw in the eyes of the possessed girl an icy, calculating gaze. Another beam shot out. Abel reacted instantly, throwing his hands forward. For a moment, the creature that was once a gazelle froze. Her voice became a distorted whisper, "Brother." The words were mockery, but the attack pattern gave a clue. Abel's mind raced, connecting all the pieces. He turned to Marishev, and his suspicion only grew stronger. The magic came from the land of the sky. It had probably fully absorbed the power of the sky god. The trap turned out to be much more cunning than he had imagined. That cursed demon had probably lured us to lower our guard, and only then used these vile tricks. But a new inconsistency appeared. Wait. Murisev's sister shook her head sharply. Giselle would never have done that. It was all the fault of that treacherous demon. She came here only because she was worried about me, and she was deceived. The possessed gazelle let out a deep sigh of irritation, her voice ringing with unearthly power. "How they all annoy me. Except for me and my brother, I wish they would all just disappear." Abel knew he had to act. He turned to the demon lord with stone-cold determination and said, "I will drive the demon out of Giselle once again and prove her innocence. I need your help." Murzef put his pride on the line, shouted, "Everyone follow me," leading a desperate assault, and the possessed gazelle rushed from the sky in pursuit. She unleashed a storm of energy spears, ruthlessly leveling everything beneath her in an unrelenting barrage. "I will tear the demon from Giselle once more," Abel shouted resolutely, a plan forming in the chaos. Taking advantage of a brief gap, "I will teleport the World Tree Totem behind Giselle." He did not take his eyes off her movements, waiting for that very nanosecond when the chance would open. With a splash of mana, he shouted the command, "Teleport," and the sacred artifact instantly appeared in the air right behind the demon's back. But her reaction was inhumanly fast. She fired a beam of energy from her palm, even before the totem could fully stabilize. Empel watched in horror as the beam hit the target. The totem of the World Tree, their key to victory, instantly evaporated. Possessed Giselle clenched her fist, a cruel smile spreading across her face as she crushed the last echoes of the sacred energy of the totems. From its destruction burst a shockwave that threw Moritz and his retinue to the ground. Her voice echoed across the desolate desert, filled with triumphant contempt. The soul of that girl was already possessed by the power of the heavenly god. Murasev stood up, his face a mask of icy rage. The last hope had failed, and he ordered Abel, "Kill that girl. Now that the World Tree Totem is destroyed, there is no time to delay." "My strength is nowhere near enough to deal with this opponent," but Abel stood firm and replied, "No, I will not." "Why are you, Lord of Demons, so angry? This is not the kind of enemy to defeat by holding back. If you give yourself fully, you can defeat him." His sister's voice was filled with despair. "Otherwise, this will be the end for us here." Abel instantly felt that grim truth. Without the World Tree Totem, driving out the demon is almost impossible. Stopping her now is only possible with an Abel ball or something equally powerful. "And what about that totem you made earlier from the ground?" asked one of his companions. "Can't we use it?" Abel just waved it off. "You mean Yamasen Nabuo 4? That was simple earth magic given to the form of a familiar, unless the totem is carved from wood that hides considerable magical power. Such a totem is useless." And the tactical situation worsened. Gazelle is now stronger than last time, so lifting the curse became even harder. Using the totem to drive out the demon is like sitting at a computer and breaking an ultra-complex code. He had no options left. "Even if I wanted to make one now, I have neither the time nor the slightest idea where to find a suitable tree." Building the World Tree Totem required careful preparation and rare materials, luxuries he no longer had, and he needed a replacement, any replacement. Standing in the forest, Abel's friends could only watch in horror at the monstrous power that revealed itself before them. Something clicked in his head. A desperate plan was born. "Marisef San," he shouted, "distract his attention while I cast the spell. It's all or nothing, but we have no other chance." The demon lord charged forward again, provoking a devastating counterattack. His sister screamed. Abel gathered all his willpower, the spell rising to its peak. "Please let this work." He sharply thrust his hands forward, unleashing a tsunami of wild magical power. The energy swept across the battlefield, tearing the very earth apart. He directed this storm, a tempest of destruction, completely under his control. The possessed gazelle turned to attack, a moment of surprise flashing across her face as the full force of the spell crashed down on her. But as the light faded, Abel could not believe his eyes opened wide. She stood completely unharmed, wild energies radiating around her as if she were the eye of the hurricane. From her body emerged an even deeper, stunning power. The air around her warped and bent, a clear demonstration of absolute power that made his own might seem tiny. The demon that possessed Dazel unleashed a catastrophic barrage. Each burst of energy was like a meteor crashing into the ground around Abel and his companions. The scale of the attack was staggering and pushed Abel to the limits of his strength. What kind of spell was that just now? Sylphane screamed in horror, shielding his eyes from the blinding explosions. If this continues, we'll all be killed. Fiera looked at Abel, her voice filled with anxiety, while he clenched his teeth in irritation. He stretched his hand to the heavens and poured all his will into a desperate cry, begging, "Come on, please, faster, come." The demon smiled maliciously, confident in his victory. But suddenly a shadow fell over the battlefield. The sky seemed to shudder as countless things appeared from thin air. The demon's eyes widened. A true army of wooden totems, a swarm so dense it blocked the sun, responded to Abel's call. The demon recoiled, disbelief evident in his voice. The quality might not be the best, but with such numbers. Abel caught that moment when he pointed directly at his sister. A complex magical circle flared before him. "Demon, get out of her body." A wave of genuine shock swept across the demon's face. In perfect synchrony, the legion of totems directed their combined power to a single point and unleashed a colossal beam of purifying energy. A pillar of light descended from the heavens and struck Gazelle's body with divine power. The blow passed through her back. A dark miasmatic shadow sharply tore out of her body. As soon as she rushed down from the sky, Abel instantly shifted his attention and cast a new spell, commanding the wind and shouting his sister's name. A powerful gust rose from beneath the earth, swirling into a protective vortex that softened her fall. He rushed to her side, the wind gently lowering her to the ground. "Diesel, do you recognize me?" Her eyes tremulously opened, confused but clear. A wave of immense relief washed over Abel, and she weakly whispered, "Dear brother." Meanwhile, the bodiless demon began to fade, its last thoughts echoing in the ether. "No, not like this. I thought I possessed a simple human, but in reality I was deceived." But the girl, she was not possessed. She forcibly drew power from my very essence and used it as if it were her own. Those brothers and sisters are too dangerous. The essence completely dissolved. The last thought of the essence was a chilling testament to their true power. As soon as the immediate threat vanished, the dark essence fled beyond the horizon. Sylphane stared at the now empty sky, then turned his gaze to the battlefield, strewn with wooden figurines, and still confusedly addressed, bewildered, "Where did such a pile of wooden dolls come from?" Abel, catching his breath, simply replied, "From my family's home." He allowed himself a small, knowing smile. Whether he would understand was a real risk. Here is my master. The true depth of his plan was a masterful move of logistics and magical theory. He had long anticipated this very situation and laid the groundwork, because he had to summon training totems from his native village, but they lacked magical energy for such a distant teleportation. So he came up with a clever trick. He sent a certain pattern of air vibrations, a coded message to the animal sound repeller he had previously installed in the village fields. The villagers heard a strange rhythmic sound. It drew them outside to check what was happening. The sound led them to the chief's house, where the Abel totems had mysteriously gathered. The chief was puzzled when he saw that his entire garden was filled with wooden dolls. Then one of the totems suddenly transmitted the message, recorded by Abel. They asked to open a teleportation circle on their side. The chief froze. A message from Abel. "He wants me to help teleport these totems to the edge of the country. Seriously." Feeling the urgency of his student's plea, he responded without hesitation and instantly drew the necessary magical circle. Hubble used the fundamental principle of teleportation magic. A one-way summon requires incredible power that increases with distance, but if a magical circle is placed both at the departure point and at the destination, the magic cost becomes almost zero. A stable conductor arises, a bridge through space. And so, as soon as the chief opened the gate on his side, Abel received the entire army of totems almost effortlessly, and with one brilliant maneuver, turned the tide of the battle. All this became possible only thanks to his ancient inventions. Once he told the chief about his sound device, explaining how simple beeps could transmit messages in code, a primitive but effective way of long-distance communication. The old man was impressed, but did not quite understand what this could lead to. Looking at the mountains, the chief felt an epiphany. The boy's talent was too great to fit in one village. Turning to the present time, their reunion was suddenly interrupted by the thunderous arrival of the local lord with his knights. On Abel's side there was first a demon, and now politics. He grabbed his head, exhausted. How do we remove this? I am so tired. I think I even hear my father's voice. It was not a hallucination. His father, together with Faraz, came with the chief, shouting his name over the broken, cratered land. The Lord stood stunned by this scene. Around a crowd of peasants, hundreds of totems, and the battlefield looked as if it had been bombarded by titans. Lord Abel, what is going on here at all? Silfan cut through the noise, his face grim. There is no time for this. The servant of the heavenly god is fallen, but the real threat has become even more serious than ever, so we must immediately set out for the grove of the world tree. The Lord turned pale. Is the country in danger? He could turn to his relatives. Determined expression froze on his face. I must stop the resurrection of that other god. With one last glance, and he set off. I cannot return to the village until all this is over. Forgive me. The peasants, seeing the impossible, could only stand and watch in awe. The gazelle is silent. She is overwhelmed by deep realization. I fully realized this after the battle. Her heart was aching, and she thought, I cannot defeat my dear brother. No matter how hard I try, I cannot stop him. And then despair crept up behind her. He will abandon me and go somewhere far away. The weight of this truth proved too heavy, and she could not bear it. She burst into tears. It was then that Elena, the librarian, stepped forward. You studied magic and chased after him all the way here just to meet him again, right? She then turned to Abel. Wouldn't everything be fine if she went with you? Giselle is almost as skilled in magic as you are, she said insistently. She will be a great help on the upcoming journey. A spark of hope glittered in Giselle's eyes. I will go, she whispered. Her voice gained strength, filled with new purpose. I will go only if you are by my side, dear brother. Abel looked at his father, who met his gaze sternly. I sighed, giving up, and said, You probably won't listen to me anyway, but be sure to come back when it's all over. Bathed in joy, Giselle clung to Abel's hand. Brother, I will help no matter what happens, even if it means defeating a god. Gathering his thoughts, Abel pointed toward their goal and said, In any case, our main objective is to stop the evil god. Let's go. And together, brother and sister rushed forward, ready to face the fate of their world.